fella stopped me on the street last night, said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day upright. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the middle of the street. Roller coaster, take me to a better time. Let's go! All sing your high line with the roller coaster of life. Yeah. It's time to all choose your timeline on the roller coaster of life. You seem to easily forget how to place your bet. When everyday life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster, it's taking over, it's about time. Oh, oh, sing your high line on the roller coaster of life. You've got to all choose your timeline with the roller coaster of life. I want to go down the rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole of life. And now it's about to leave. Oh, roller coaster.
Today over at Bills OTAs, no Josh Allen, James Cook, Cam Lewis, or Joey Bosa. We're going to get more on practice today. Sal Capaccio set to join the show at 5 p.m. Coordinators did speak today before practice. Defense coordinator Bobby Babich and offense coordinator Joe Brady. And on Brady, he had this to say on Cook's absence.
I obviously love Jimbo, but it's just like whenever someone's not here, it's a great opportunity for the guys that are. And seeing Ray and Ty and Diev and Frank just get those opportunities, like everybody kind of benefits from that. But I am excited whenever Jimbo is back with us.
OTAs will wrap up this week, and mandatory minicamp will be next week, running Tuesday through Thursday. Patriots linebacker Jelani Tavai suffered a calf injury today. He is expected to be held out until training camp. And Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud continuing to not throw at OTAs. He's dealing with shoulder soreness. Head coach D'Amico Ryans says there is no concern on his end. Big news in the world of basketball. The Knicks are relieving head coach Tom Thibodeau of his duties. Thibodeau was New York's head coach for the past 5 seasons, making the playoffs in 4 of them, and this year led the team to the Eastern Conference Finals, the first time for the Knicks in 25 years. Bisons are in Syracuse versus the Mets. First pitch at 6:35. You can listen to that on our sister station, The Bet 1520. Just after 7, the Yankees host Cleveland. The Blue Jays have Philadelphia town, and then the night will wrap up at 10 as Mets are at the Dodgers. And under 100 WGR VIP golf cards are left. 8 amazing golf experiences for the low price of $129. For all the details and to purchase, go to getmyperks.com. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog. don't think Michael's ever done drugs.
It's Mike Schopp.
I don't know if anyone's ever offered him any.
Let's go over some of the symptoms of marijuana use, shall we? You tell me who this sounds like.
It's the Bulldog.
Slow moving, inattentive, dull, constantly snacking, shows a lack of motivation.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog on WGR SportsRadio550.
I think this is funny. I just laughed out loud to myself like 3 seconds ago. So because I have my podcast on Tuesdays, ADP Chasing, where it's like crack of dawn, I get up for that thing.
Crack of dawn is what we're going with.
10. We're on at 10.
Wow.
I mean, 2 of the guys are on the West Coast. That's the crack of dawn.
That
counts.
7 a.m. is.
You've already played 18 by the time we launch on ADP Chasing.
Yeah,
on Tuesday mornings.
I was done golfing today by the time you started your show. Yeah.
Man, I've been talking to Sneaky Joe. He's at Tri-County now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how I did it. I was on the air at 2 o'clock weekdays then.
And you would go out there and play golf in the morning?
I'd be the first one out. I would have to drive almost an hour to Tri-County. I'd play alone usually. There was another older couple that sometimes would beat me to the first tee because no one's even working there by then. It's before 7 o'clock, maybe even before 6, I don't know, in the summer.
Yeah.
And if I could be first one out, I came to know them and they would let me go because I was fast and single. I'd be done by maybe like 9 or 10 at the latest, like this, and then home, shower, lunch, at work, easily on time. How did I do that? What happened? Where is that guy?
I don't know. I played out there summer before last. Brian Koziel set us up, and I went out there. You were away because Sal was co-hosting with me the afternoon show, and Sal was a part of the force. It was me, Brian, Sneaky Joe. And maybe this is where the seed got planted for Joe to become a member there. And Sal. And, we played pretty early. And it didn't, it wasn't really slow or anything. I don't remember waiting around or anything. But, we got done maybe around noon. And then came back and I remember I texted Sal because we were trying, are you going to be at home or are you going to go in the studio? I'm like, I'll probably stay at home. I got home and I thought, I got to go in. If I stay home, I'm going to be in too comfortable a chair. I was so tired after that, just being up and out there, the driving and everything. Now my day starts, really? Now my work day begins? That's a grind, man.
I mean, it's a first world grind.
Yes, that's right.
It's a grind, sure.
But I think 30 years ago, it was a lot easier to pull off. Go do that, because now
I'll settle for that.
I would not, if I didn't live a half a mile from the golf course that I play, I don't think I would feel comfortable. Even though we have all this time in the morning, and the show doesn't start till 3, I don't think I'd feel comfortable going somewhere and being there for 5 hours and the whole process taking that long.
What I was going to say is just this, that because I have the Tuesday morning show, I spend Monday evening with ideas. No offense, but tonight, probably, I will not be preparing anything for tomorrow, for this tomorrow. Maybe if something happens, then I will, if I'm home and sort of free to do that. But on Monday night, because it's a double, if you will, then I'll sort of write down ideas. So I have a sheet for that show, and I have a sheet for this show. And I just saw, I must have just ignored this for the last hour and a half since I've been sitting here, is that I wrote last night, I guess I thought of this as maybe a topic for today.
For us, not for
us.
Okay.
I wrote, know what would be amazing if Patrick Mahomes announced he was taking a year off. Why would I have I don't even remember why I even had that thought. Don't people still do that in life? You said to Mike Tanier yesterday, just go backpack in Europe for a year or something like that. Right. What if Patrick Mahomes was or even, I guess, Josh Allen. I don't know why there'd be a difference here, but just I just got married. I need a break. It'll prolong my career. Is there any way I could get away with just taking a year or retire When Andrew Luck retired, did most people think he was about to come back the year after? I feel like with Derek Carr, he will be back on the field, but I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know why. I mean, it's not that Derek Carr... I don't perceive him as insincere, but I never doubted Andrew Luck. Like the injuries he had, like it was entirely believable to me that he was just, I don't want to, like I have a good mind, and I'd like to not just be just destroyed by the time I'm 30 years old. So that I thought that would be sticky. The car thing, I don't know, maybe, but it's that hasn't been that much of an accumulation. It feels like there's just one bad thing that really happened to him this year. So I could see him coming back. I don't know. But.
Andrew Luck is 35. Imagine Andrew Luck making a comeback to the NFL. That'd be great. At 35, it'd be so great to talk about. Like, what is...
Yep.
The Colts need a guy, right? So if Andrew Luck decided he wanted to play, he's the general... College teams have general managers now. Yeah. He's the general manager at Stanford, where he played. Anyway.
Yeah, I feel like he's not coming back, I don't think.
If Mahomes decided, even if he was like, whatever, it's so random, but if he just like, I just need a year, I think I'll be better for it, family time, then I'll come back. These guys will play out, all of them. They'll play out their careers, or most, as long as they can. A bunch of offensive linemen retired today. Like, I don't know. Those guys are sometimes in their 20s when they do. But still, most guys are just going to play for as long as they can. And then it's family time. But maybe their kids are like 10 or old teenagers by then, and they'll feel like they've missed it. I'm not saying any of this to be pejorative. Just it'll be kind of late in the game for that. And maybe their bodies aren't as able because they've played for longer, and maybe there are regrets. I wonder what Eric would say to this. Eric Wood, who was forced into retirement at a younger age. And whenever we talk to Eric, he's doing stuff with his kids at Disney and different things. Like, he doesn't get that in the same way if he plays 6 more years, Yeah.
And his body probably takes a lot more punishment. I mean, maybe,
I wonder if he's grateful.
A third as much, like a third more punishment, playing another few years like he didn't end up doing. I mean, I think the thing is, though, I mean, you're like in the case of Mahomes or Allen, I mean, these are the best years of your life. These are the best years of your career. Like, you're at your athletic peak right now. So skipping a year now to maybe prolong it on the tail end, I don't know. I don't think I would advocate for it. I mean, certainly if somebody chose it, I would respect it, but I'd be pretty stunned to have somebody plan it that way. Like, I want to skip a year in my late 20s to come back and play so I can play longer when I'm 38. Like, that just does not. The way I feel sitting here today, right now, after playing around at golf, I don't think I'd want to skip a year in my 20s.
Well, at 38, you probably were still okay. But, okay, I mean, it's just, for some reason I wrote that down last night. What if Patrick Mahomes took a year off? Like, the Chiefs' win total maybe is 11.5. What would it be if he just...
7.5?
Right. They'd just be like, out. Right? Kansas City would just be out.
Yep.
And then somebody would say, well, don't be so sure. But they would just be out.
And then we would laugh at that person.
Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo,
be so sure.
Cincinnati, Philadelphia, I don't know, like Washington. A lot of these teams, a quarter of the league would be just like, all right, forget it. Detroit, I mean, a lot of teams would just be, you wouldn't even consider it. Anyway, that's one thing. It's not even really a thing. I think, you tell me what you think. Isn't the Knicks coach being fired usable in here right now? Like, here's the tweet on Tom Thibodeau, the Knicks coach. Led the Knicks to their first East Finals in 25 years. What was McDermott in 2020? That was more than 25 years since they made the semis, as it were, like the AFC Championship. That would have been 27 years, I think. Led the Knicks to their first East Finals in 25 years, made playoffs in 4 of 5, led the Knicks to consecutive 50-plus win seasons for first time since the 90s. Fired. They made the Eastern Conference Finals. They lost in 6. Game 1 was theirs. They blew it. The rest of the series was pretty even, and they never got that first game back. Well, they kind of did in Game 3. They were way down in Game 3 and won.
They reversed it, yeah. Basically.
Whatever, right? Lost in the conference finals in 6 games and had never even been that far before this year, fired. And I don't know for myself. Like, I'm not here to give you an opinion on the decision. But basketball people I follow, like, yeah, that was the right move. I get it. Nick Kostos, Knicks fan, like, I can't believe they did it, but it's right.
You peaked,
which you don't know.
Right.
And Sean McDermott, 3 or 4 years ago, somebody said it. And they haven't been wrong yet, including Nick, by the way. I'm sure Nick is going to mention the Bills on You Better You Bet today because that's an easy comp, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like basketball is probably more like hockey for coaches.
It seems that way to me, yeah.
Where you're just going to they seem more disposable.
Yeah.
Than in football. Football, it just doesn't have to, though. It feels like a weightier choice, a weightier decision. Like, there's a lot more.
The staffs are,
the staffs. The football staffs are larger than NBA rosters.
Yeah, the coordinators and all the position coaches and all that stuff that sort of goes with it. I mean, it's a program. And yes, a basketball team or a hockey team has a system that they play on offense and defense and variations thereof. But it's just not as, and there are assistant coaches there too, and I'm sure ones who specialize in defense and offense and half-court sets and whatever, designing fast breaks maybe or something. I have no idea how deep coordinators, is there a dunk coordinator? I don't know how deep those coaching staffs go, but it's still, you're coaching, 12 people? It's just a much smaller proposition, and therefore I think, only a couple guys on the team, if they're the main guys, probably carry a lot of weight when, talking with ownership or general managers or vice presidents or whomever when a year ends. That input probably carries more weight than 1 out of 53 football players or even 1 out of 25 hockey players that are on an NHL roster. It's just so small, and the stars are such big stars that I think, one word from, I'm not saying this happened, but the GM gets a bad feeling from Jalen Brunson about Tom Thibodeau continuing as coach. I think we got to make a change. That's it. This guy might be he's on the verge of unhappiness with the coach. That's it. Change it. Whereas it's a little more complicated and, a bigger pool of players.
Allen is the only name for this, if there's anything to be said about a comparison. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say had necessarily, but wondered for a long time just what Allen and McDermott really were as a tandem. Like, does Allen need McDermott for anything? Especially 7-8 years into his career. Does he need him for anything? And if he doesn't, what does that mean? Does that give you more license to think about a different head coach? If they're ever at odds, then that would even, point you more in that direction. Allen just seems to me mostly just very easygoing about it all. I don't know if that's right, but that's definitely, I think, how he comes off. Like, just, yeah, okay. Diggs is gone, okay. Diggs is mad, okay. We have this guy now, okay. Coordinator change, okay. Like, he just gives you, for all his power here, if he ever wanted to exert it publicly, it would be a huge deal.
Yeah, it would.
But has he ever
No, he's
done
very
anything?
much been I'm the player, you're the coach the type of guy, I think. Like, that is just how, at least, front-facing anyway, like what we see of him is that. And so, and it's not to imply that I think it's an act or anything. I mean, I've never heard a single thing that would make me want to doubt that. It just seems like how he is. So you tell me something's changing. All right, you tell me what I got to do. You're in charge. I work here. Yeah, I am the most important person in the organization. I don't know that he walks around thinking that, but I think from a distance, it's easy to assert that he is that. He's the most important guy there. But he definitely seems like, comfortable being below the decision-making process. For all he does, fiddle around with the draft a little, I guess.
Well, he might have, and he probably does have some voice, but he seems to be the type of person that's content, which, I don't know. I think that probably we need him to be that way. Because if he's not that way, he's Jack. He becomes, the Bills have been very close, and he wouldn't, with a different personality type, and we're both taking leaps here. I certainly am. Disgruntled with the Bills bumping their head on the Chiefs and the AFC playoffs every year. But if he were, look at his life. New York, L.A., he's starting media companies, marrying
actresses.
An actress. It's still it's not plural.
Just one,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, just all of it. I bet a lot of Western New Yorkers kind of go is this real? Does it? Are you sure he doesn't want more? But, he's, for all intents and purposes, he's paid to the max. It's not like the Bills only offer, you, for instance, only make a fraction.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you and I are different. Only make a fraction of the top media market radio guys because it's Buffalo and they tell us that's how it is. What are you going to do?
Right. In football, it doesn't work that way.
No, football he does great.
He gets his slice of the pie that any quarterback would get anywhere.
Right.
New York, L.A., Dallas, whatever. Yeah.
So that's nice for him.
Yeah.
But I don't. What's the point?
The point is that the Knicks fired a coach who had success, got them to the playoffs, and got them farther than they had been in 25 years. And I felt the same way the Monday after the Leafs got eliminated. You were not here that day. You were playing golf.
Shocking.
And that day was kind of the same sort of thing. Not that they were going to fire a coach that day, but is it time to do something? Right? We've been running this back, and I even said about myself, from a distance, I don't have any real passionate interest in the Leafs. I'm interested in them as, the market and an original six team and kind of a historic franchise and proximity. But, I don't care really what happens to them. And so when talking about them, it's you should keep going. Those guys are good. Marner, Matthews, Nylander, keep going. Break the door. Sort of like McDermott says, we're going to keep knocking on the door until it opens. And the Leafs, I think, for me anyway, I couldn't say that anymore after they lost another Game 7. Even though it's to a great team that's in the final again. It's not like they should be embarrassed. But the way they played in two of those games, it's time to change. And I always want to look in the mirror and see the Bills back when I'm thinking that way about a franchise that has had great regular season success and very modest playoff success. The Bills never had modest playoff success. They win a playoff game. They win a round every one of these years.
At least.
It's just, and sometimes 2 games, but they have not gotten all the way there. So there's enough comparables there for me to, swing it back around and then start looking through that lens at the Bills. And how long are we going to go? If something doesn't give here, if the door doesn't open, when is it time? Even if there isn't a glaring, obvious smoking gun type thing like 13 seconds, which is already, a long time ago now.
Well, you've heard me on this before. We've talked about it enough times already. It's still fresh. But you could say, and not everybody, of course, but not even the majority, a lot of people would say last year was this. Because what did last year end up being? Dominant regular season, franchise record in scoring. Give McDermott as much credit as you choose to for that. He doesn't call the plays. He hires the offensive coordinator. That's what he does. He decides what to do on 4th down, I suppose, if it's not other people telling him they went to Yale. So it's limited. Franchise record in points. 13 wins, AFC championship, could not stop a Chiefs team that everybody else in the league could stop all year. I mean,
yep.
I'm not. I wasn't the one. I'm still not the one telling you the time was now, if you will, to do that. I have said I think one more of those, and then I'm there. The same year again, I'm there. Like, it's different than basketball. It's different than hockey. The Bills also. I mean, the Knicks are interesting to compare them to, or even the Leafs, because those are like iconic, huge market franchises that want to hold themselves to the ultimate standard of winning, but I know neither team ever wins. Can anybody remember either team ever winning a championship? Like, you have to be 70. Like, just, it's never happened. But still, it's New York, it's Toronto and hockey. Like, our reputation, our image, our thing is, like, we're shooting for the top. So, I mean, the Leafs haven't been through that many coaches, only 3 all these years where they've been in the playoffs. Right. Babcock, Keefe, Berube, who was actually only his first year.
Right.
I don't know the Knicks. I mean, it's a different situation, but that's what the conversation about the coach and what to do when you're really good for a long time, but you can't break through, I think is some part your market and kind of like how you see yourself in the world. And this is really only Terry Pegula he can turn on a dime when it comes to this. He doesn't have to be like Buffalo minded, if you will. Like, he could be New York or Toronto minded. He's totally not, though. He's firing hockey coaches only when he feels like he has to. Mm-hmm. And he's still not even really doing it. Like, the Adams thing is incredible in real sports.
Yeah.
6th year without even a playoff appearance. It's incredible. It's just like, maybe in 1910s baseball you would have had that.
Right.
But nobody in real sports has that. Like, there's, even in Buffalo, there should be enough pressure where you'd be like, are you kidding? I have to pay him, so? But, incredibly, the Sabres just sort of trudge along, spinning however they can. I don't want to make this about them. I think because I don't want to get upset. The thing with the Knicks is kind of like a McDermott situation, but it's New York and it's basketball where you don't have offense, defense, coaches are always in one or the other bucket. It just makes you think. I think the Knicks news really makes you think, like, how long will this go if the Bills can't win one? Forever? Because the McDermott critics talk like that's how they expect it. And I don't know if they're wrong. Last year could have been the year where you went, Kansas City was actually bad.
Vulnerable, and we couldn't take advantage of them.
You had enough. You got to the game against the Chiefs, having beaten them again, and couldn't stop them. And then they went to the Super Bowl and lost by 30. That was the year you could have done it.
Yeah. I know we got to get to a break here, but one thought just comes to mind, and it comes up almost anytime you talk about Pegula, ownership, and these coaches, both franchises, right? Someone will make the point, and I have to admit, it is on my mind too whenever we talk about it, is the run of disasters on the hockey side and how much stability there's been on the football side. And look, that is not a reason to not make a change if you believe it's time to make a change. I just wonder what it will take to get the owner to ever see that. And that is not to say he should see it already, because I've not been there yet either. But I know we have to be closer to the end than the finish, or the end than the beginning at this point. I mean, he's going into year 8 here.
9.
Year 8, year 9, year 9.
9.
Without a title. So I wonder how much the futility on the hockey side is on the owner's mind if he's ever contemplating a change on the football side. But it's a little bit different than what the fans usually say. Oh, it'll be a disaster. I wonder if he thinks it could be a disaster. He's got the stability of these guys that have been here for all these years now, and it is successful to a large extent. Successful, just not completely over the top successful, whereas the hockey thing is just it's toxic.
Well, I think what you're kind of saying is he could look in the mirror when he thinks of the two teams and like, thank God I made the one good move.
Right, and I don't want to mess that up.
I've made one good move.
Right,
in 15 years.
Right, I could go through 3 guys in 5 years if I fire this guy.
Yep. 803-0550, Sean McDermott, Tom Thibodeau, Mike Schopp and the Bulldog. 4 o'clock, Rich Rebar, Lord Reeves from Warren Sharp's website, or Rebsite, if you'd rather.
Wow.
Rewind. On Dalton Kincaid and the Bills' skill position players going into 2025. Sal Capaccio will join us as well today. We'll look for your calls next, 803-0550. Lines are open. This is WGR.
a lot about that last year. And I think the overall consistency in our approach, in our execution, making sure that no matter who we're playing, certain things stay the same. I need to make sure I do that first and foremost as the leader of the defense. And that would be my biggest thing, is the consistency and, our overall approach to the game.
Bobby Babich. This is a day where you want to know those voices. Bob Babich, Joe Brady. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. If you miss anything from our show or the morning show, get to the Odyssey app. For instance, when Bulldog yesterday uttered those famous words, "Save it for the Padres." You'll want that on the Odyssey app or at WGR550.com. Classic moment. There's been so many. And that just fits right in the annals. Two ends. Who doesn't love peanut butter? Not on the air. That was not a quote that was said on the air until now, as far as I know. But my wife asked that question, I think, rhetorically this morning. Our dog is getting some medicine and will not take the pills without something to go with. So that's, maybe the obvious choice,
right?
Peanut butter. And there's this whole routine now where she knows she has to take it's two things. She gets a pill and she gets like a cream. And so she knows what's coming, and my wife sits there with a peanut butter knife. And it's close enough so the dog won't run away. Margot is like sort of 5 to 10 feet away, sees it, stares at it, but has to wait and just, come on. Then make the move toward her. She jumps down, comes back around. It's the whole thing. But eventually she gets the cream and the medicine and the peanut butter. And my wife posited only people allergic to peanuts maybe wouldn't. Maybe those people love peanut butter. They just can't have it anymore.
It's so sad.
If they know.
Yeah.
But everybody loves peanut butter. Gabe Davis, that's my little speech. Gabe Davis is visiting the Steelers.
Yeah, I saw something about that last night. Yeah. Good luck.
I hope he makes it.
Sure, me too.
I'd love to see him back and
in a role where maybe he can, get on the field a little bit more than he was. And I shouldn't say that. I don't know positively how much he played in Jacksonville. I just know it didn't go well so badly that they caught him right away here 1 year in.
Medical, but they didn't seem to have plans for him.
Right.
Pittsburgh. So Adam Schefter, that was so weird last week with Jonnu Smith, and the Steelers are working on a trade for Jonnu Smith. That's not the exact wording. Today, Schefter said they're still looking for a pass catcher. They will not be trading for Jonnu Smith.
Okay, that's over, apparently.
That's out.
I did see something today referencing Mike McDaniel, trying to smooth that over with Jonnu Smith. So maybe they're trying to find a way forward there in Miami.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Lines are open for your calls. We were talking before about Sean McDermott. And really, it's not a fun question. The Bills have been so successful that even the idea of bringing up a coaching change, when does it end for him if they don't win? Just what is it? It doesn't feel good to talk about that because, so many, and I'm not sure they'd be wrong, and this has mostly been me over the last 5 years, would say, man, there's just all kinds of cliches for it. Be happy. Be happy with how good they've been, how close they are. But what the New York Knicks seem to be an example of today, a team that has done way more losing than the Bills in this, however long, 10 years at least. 5 to 10 years, maybe not 30. But they feel apparently like they've topped out. Where imagine if this were us. Imagine it's really a better point if it's the Sabres, where they had a coach who went 5 years, it didn't really line up this way for Lindy Ruff. If Lindy Ruff had taken over post-Hasek and gotten them to the conference finals in 06, and then in 07, even, give him that. And the Sabres go, who is it? Golisano? Here.
Right.
They go, yeah, we've hit our heads on the ceiling.
Right, we're done.
You're out.
Yeah.
How would that have it's tough comparison. Ruff was already entrenched and he played here and it's not the same. Whereas this guy, like a lot of NBA, NHL coaches are just always seemingly on the move. Pete DeBoer, these guys are just always changing offices.
I'm waiting for him to get fired, by the way, too. I still think that's very possible in the next few days, but we'll see.
Another team that has gone to the conference finals 3 years in a row.
I was talking about this with Owen last night because what I didn't know, I know how he sounded after they lost the game the other night. That was game 5, right?
Game 5.
Yeah.
Edmonton.
Yeah. I how critical he was of the goalie, 6 of the last 7 he's lost to this team. Just very direct, pointed criticism of the goalie. Not even a we in there. It's him that can't beat Edmonton. Mm-hmm. And I think only knowing that on Friday, I said to you, I maybe he knows he's done. If he's dealing that directly and plainly with the goalie, maybe he knows he's in trouble because ownership expected them to take a step. They went and got him Rantanen, and that didn't. It worked for a pocket of the playoffs, but mostly he was a ghost. I've never seen a guy be that invisible and then look like the Conn Smythe winner and then be invisible again.
Who was the player Paul mentioned when he was on last week and we were talking about Rantanen? And he said a guy who went from looking like Wayne Gretzky to, I think it was like some Sabres fourth liner, because I was ready to jump in with Wayne Newton, but then Paul used an actual hockey player's name, not named Wayne.
Okay.
And then he kept talking for so long, I never went back.
Right.
It just didn't work out.
Could have gone for Wayne Presley there. Maybe that would have worked. That would have been a hockey-playing Wayne who played for the Sabres. Anyways.
Wayne Primo.
I don't mean to get off on a Pete DeBoer tangent here, but it is pertinent, just like Thibodeau is. Because, again, different sport, but I think there's a lot of reporting that's indicating players did not have great things to say about how the coach treated the goalie at the end there in exit meetings with the general manager, if not the coach too. And that not only did he criticize him right after the game, they had locker clean out, and Ottinger divulged that he, by then, 2 days after the game, still hadn't talked to the coach at all. Which is incredible. He's under contract, a new contract that begins this year, paying him like $8 million a year for 8 years.
Seems like a problem.
Yeah. So I think that guy's in real trouble. But it's the same concept here. Can you not get out of your own way and get to the thing, get to the title round at least even. So that's why anytime I talk about it, I'm thinking about McDermott. Like last night with my son talking about DeBoer, I'm thinking about McDermott. At some point, you're going to have to reckon with this, I think.
And some are not ready to do it, and some have been ready for a long time. Tommy's with us. Hello, Tommy.
Hey, guys. How you doing today?
Great.
Yeah, so my kind of question to pose to you guys, in general, how many games do you think the Bills are essentially winning from McDermott? I mean, to me, he just seems like a very average coach that you could plug and play any coach, and we're essentially going to get to the same amount of wins. I understand he's like Josh Allen's friends, but at this time, I'm just here for a mix-up, something different. Nothing really against McDermott. I just don't know if we're going to really get over the hump with this guy.
Well, no one does. I mean, that's just, you can't know that.
And you also don't get to know how many games they would have won with your name here as the coach. I just don't ever really know what to do with that exactly, because it just ignores so much of the stuff that I think it's easy to take for granted, that even can get mocked even in here. Culture and family and the whole thing, Bill's DNA, that's him. And we spent a lot of last week talking about Miami and what a wreck that is, and they get, maybe they're moving talented guys out because of culture, and there's guys sleeping through meetings and all this sort of divisiveness. There's none of that here. And I think to have that, when we talk about James Cook even, the Bills just are almost stress-free. They've had a pretty, Diggs had his moments, yes, but there's not stuff all the time. Really, ever. And that is to his credit. The people that they've brought in and surrounded themselves with, and I just think saying some other guy could have done it is, I don't know, man. Do you know what kind of team they had when Rex Ryan was their coach?
Yeah, 500.
So I just don't.
And they didn't have Allen. I mean, I certainly get the question. It's not so fair for a lot of reasons. Like a defensive coach in this league, how many games? Well, this is really. Am I telling on myself? How many games does the defensive coach really win for his team against Mahomes? That's when you need it. The Bills have beaten him 4 years in a row. By the way, I have to say it. Like against Baltimore, Cincinnati. You'd rather be on the other side. You'd rather be on the side of the quarterback. And teams that play the Bills would say the same thing. You'd rather have the great quarterback. Every day is different for me. Every day is different for me. And you sound the same way, right? Like right there, you're like, would any coach have won these games? And I'm thinking to myself, probably.
Yeah, see, that makes me...
Who is the coach? Does it have to be the worst coach you can think of?
Right.
Does it have to be even Rex? No, it doesn't have to be that.
I just don't think it's an easy job to have all the things lined up that this organization has lined up. And I think it's easy from a distance, any of us just watching the games. Of course, Allen is more important to their success on the field than the coach. But I don't think it's fair to the coach to posit a question like, how many games would they have won without him? I just think it ignores a lot that's easy to overlook, and that's why it gets ignored. What ends up happening to me is whenever we end up in this conversation, what I end up running into with my eyes wide open, I know I'm running toward it. It's where I think I want to go. What I run to is, man, I want him to win one so damn bad. Just caught. Like, he's been here long enough. I don't know him, but I'm rooting for him in a way that I did not expect 2 or 3 years ago. And it's this mounting criticism. It's, how many games have they won if anybody was their coach? What does he really do for them? That kind of stuff makes me want to see him hold that trophy.
It makes you want to defend him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say like that's a default setting. Because, I've had my moments with him for sure where I thought I can't do this anymore. But I end up there, and it feels almost too fan-like. But that's really what I end up at. I want him to win them a Super Bowl, us a Super Bowl.
Well, so does everybody.
Right.
And to advocate for a change is in the name of wanting to win one, period. Whether he's around or you're sacrificing him, you think maybe they'd have a better chance without him. Not even maybe. Thanks, Tommy. Getting connected with The Fans, brought to you by Northtown Kia, Western New York's #1 Kia dealer. Shop online at northtownkia.com. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
We've been living in sin so long, all the feels are gone. Fella stopped me on the street last night, said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day upright. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the middle of the street. Roller coaster, take me to a better time. Let's go. All sing your high line with the roller coaster of life. Yeah. It's time to all choose your timeline on the roller coaster of life. You seem to easily forget how to place your bet. When everyday life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster, it's taking over, it's about time. Oh, all sing your high line on the roller coaster of life. You've got to all choose your timeline with the roller coaster of life. I want to go down the rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole of life. And now it's about to leave. Oh, roller coaster.
Rebar will join us at the top of the hour. He does a lot of data work for, among other things, for Warren Sharp. And when I saw him tweeting last week on Dalton Kincaid and the Bills, he may have written the Bills chapter for Warren's off-season guide. Like, come on in. And he said, it'll have to be next week because my kid's last week of school and I pick them up right at your time. Like, that's fine. So we'll wait until your school district's year is out.
Right.
And we'll talk to you then, and that's today. So stay tuned for Rich. He knows a lot. Let's go to Anthony here. Hi, Anthony.
Hey, guys. Good afternoon. You know, don't throw me off the balcony here for saying this, but I grew up in the drought era. I'm 42, and right now life is good. You know, I know that we have not won the big one yet, and that's the ultimate goal. But I'd really be curious to know if we did get there and get over that hump, which would be amazing, how it would be after that. Because part of the fun for me is the chase. Every year we're good. We're competitive. We're right there in the loop. We've got a superstar freak quarterback who's married to a Hollywood actress. The Bills are respected. We're at the top of the league, almost there. And life is pretty good. And McDermott, like you guys were mentioning, is, a big part of that. It's Allen and McDermott. They're kind of intricately tied to each other. And I'm just overall really enjoying this run. So many great moments, so many highlights. It's just a great great time to be a fan. It's doing so much for the area. You've got the stadium. So I guess overall my point is just I want the big one, but there's no chance in hell I'd get rid of McDermott. I think this is going to be some of the greatest, if not the greatest years of the Bills' existence, and I'm curious to see what happens if we get there, how the reaction is after the chase is over. So I'm fine with McDermott.
Okay. The stadium always comes up. They usually don't think of it first. There's no way he's not coaching day one at the new stadium. That's what would have to happen.
That is probably.
I'm over here like if they have the same season, I think I'm done. And imagine like 13-3, 2 playoff wins. They lose to the Chiefs or somebody by a field goal, and like they're going to go into the new stadium with. Well, we can do better for this if we even want to, but Jeff Fisher, I
thought of Joe Brady.
Yeah, Joe Brady.
Right. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, that probably is right.
No way.
It's a little like trading your number one pick when you're hosting the draft.
Yes, it is.
Similar thought process anyway. I drove past there last Tuesday for the first time in many months. And, I mean, newsflash. I mean, holy moly.
It's there. It's literally there now.
It is like, for a while there, you could be sitting, you're coming up Abbott from the direction of the city. So I guess that's south on Abbott. You get to Southwestern, and for a while, I didn't even really see it over there. You could see cranes, right? Maybe the last time I was at Abbott and Southwestern traveling in that direction, you could see cranes over the bar that's at the corner there. I mean, now it's just, as soon as you come off of Milestrip onto Abbott, it's like, what? Spaceship. I mean, it's just amazing.
It's very much there.
For those who live in the North Towns and don't get down there that often, I mean, just it's worth a ride if you're a Bills fan. I drove by it. We went out of our way I want to see it. We're, a mile away. I'm going to drive up this way. And so that's what we did. And it was worth it.
Talking Bills, skill position players, and more with Rich Rebar after this. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
No Josh Allen, James Cook, Cam Lewis, or a Joey Bosa. We will, though, get more on practice today. Sal Capaccio is set to join the show in just about an hour at 5 p.m. But today, before practice, it was coordinators who spoke with the media. Defensive coordinator Bobby Babich and offense coordinator Joe Brady. And on Brady, he had this to say on James Cook's absence.
I obviously love Jimbo, but it's just like whenever someone's not here, it's a great opportunity for the guys that are. And seeing Ray and Ty and Diev and Frank just get those opportunities, like everybody kind of benefits from that. But I am excited whenever Jimbo is back with us.
OTAs are going to wrap up this week. Mandatory minicamp will then be next week, running Tuesday through Thursday. Patriots linebacker Jelani Tave suffered a calf injury today. He's expected to be held out until training camp. And Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud continuing to not throw at OTAs. He's dealing with shoulder soreness. Head coach DeMeco Ryans says there is no concern on his end. The Knicks are relieving head coach Tom Thibodeau of his duties. Thibodeau was the Knicks head coach for the past 5 seasons, making the playoffs in 4 of them, and this year led them to the Eastern Conference Final for the first time in 25 years. Bisons are in Syracuse versus the Mets. First pitch at 6:35. You can listen to that on our sister station, The Bet 1520. And under 100 WGR VIP golf cards left. 8 amazing golf experiences for the low price of $129. For all the details and to purchase, go to getmyperks.com. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
We're up there, and here are the people on the panel, so I'm taking pot shots at Brian Brown. Because, that's what he came to Buffalo for.
It's Mike Schopp.
You literally told E.J. Manuel to his face that he sucked.
And the Bulldog.
I was proud of you, because
I feel like that's what you're there for.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
I know. I couldn't, though. I couldn't.
I'm better than you.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
I couldn't, but I'd do it in here 10 days a week. That's not proud. How about that Stroud thing? See the Seth Payne tweet that I shared?
I did not.
It's a little clip of DeMeco Ryans talking about Stroud, and someone gives him just a matter-of-fact question about whether he had any off-season shoulder work done, and he wouldn't say. Why won't you just say, if you're not worried about it, why wouldn't you say everything?
Right.
First question for Rich Rebar. He's not expecting it. Rich, should we be worried about C.J. Stroud in 2025? Hi.
Hey, guys. What's going on? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, similar to last year, C.J. Stroud, if we're talking just from a pure fantasy stance, he's not a guy that runs a lot, so he has to throw an immense amount of touchdowns. Now, he ran hot his rookie season, but, that's just the life we live. He is a lot cheaper this year, but he's just in a really flat bucket of QB2 types. So, he's just not a guy I think particularly has an ultra-high ceiling unless you run really hot with touchdowns.
Thus ends the Houston Texans portion of the quiz. So thanks for playing along, Rich. Lord Reeves.
Glad I made it without having to add anything.
Diggs isn't even there to help you. Sharp football analysis. We've had Warren on many times over the years. I'm not sure Rich has been on the show with us, but we're lucky to have him, one of the most well-respected names and minds in fantasy and in football data analysis. You caught my eye recently, I think it was last week, when you were writing up tight ends and Dalton Kincaid, and you had some back and forth on Kincaid, and you told me that you were maybe done with or doing the Bills chapter for Warren's site. Let's get an overall from you, Rich, if you would, on the Bills and their skill position players. You may or may not know. We're in here talking about them every day for many years. And as successful as they've been, especially quintessentially last year, I at least struggle with their talent, with their setup going into this year, as I did last year, and I guess they have scoreboard because they literally set a franchise record in points. I don't know. How solid are they, in your opinion, on offense? Should someone like me maybe just stop worrying about it?
Yeah, I think you should probably stop worrying about it. Well, one, because they got one position right. They've got an alpha at the position that matters the most, right? So if you got quarterback right, a lot of things fall in line. The Bills are very interesting from an offensive stance because they are kind of like a team, like if you would equate them to like baseball, like a team full of utility men. Like they love to play everyone. Like they play more guys on offense than just about every other offense in the NFL. I mean, they're playing 3 running backs with James Cook, Ray Davis, and Ty Johnson, playing now third downs last year. At wide receiver, the only wide receiver that was on the field for them on over 70% of the dropbacks last year was Mac Hollins. And that's because of, how much, he impacts the run game, and now he's not on the team anymore. Then you look at what they did this offseason in replacing him, and Amari Cooper still being on the wide open market, adding Elijah Moore and Josh Palmer, 2 guys that really haven't been, alpha targets themselves. It looks like they're going to roll this thing back where they just play a lot of receivers as well. They play multiple tight ends. They play a lot of 12 personnel. So you get Dawson Knox in on the run game and in bigger sets, Dalton Kincaid, as kind of like that flex Y guy. And so they just play a lot of guys. I mean, the linchpin of this thing, too, outside of Josh Allen, has been the offensive line, right? Like the Buffalo Bills, and I don't want to throw a hex on anyone listening here, like especially in the first couple minutes beyond the show. No one has run hotter than the Bills in terms of offensive line continuity the past 2 years. I mean, they just have not suffered injuries up front. And since the NFL's gone to 17 games, like we've seen that offensive lines don't stay intact for over 50% of the snaps. And last year, the Bills' starting offensive line was on the field for 80% of their offensive plays. That was second in the NFL. They were also second in the NFL in 2023. So they've just run ultra pure on just keeping this offensive line continuity together, which has been massively under kind of reported because, outside of Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown, they don't have a lot of great all-pro type offensive linemen. But when you keep your starting linemen on the field, that's already an edge over the field in the NFL because there's just so many injuries and so many, rotating blocks on the offensive line across the NFL now.
So how do you think the new guys here, you mentioned Palmer and Moore specifically, we can talk about the guys that were here last year for the first year of Everybody Eats in a minute here. What sort of impact do you think or is it really very hard to gauge because you're A, players, new team, B, the Bills didn't play anyone all that much besides Mac Hollins, like you're saying, and he's not even here anymore. I don't know, what's the forecast for a guy like Palmer or a guy like Elijah Moore?
We know that one guy's locked in, right? Khalil Shakir. We know he's the slot receiver. That does limit him a little bit. You look at the past 2 years, he's only run 25 pass routes on plays that the Bills have 1 or 2 wide receivers on the field. If the Bills are in 1 or 2 wide receiver sets, he's just not on the field, comes in and slot, cleans up on those plays that the Bills go to 3+ wide receivers. So we know that that's locked in. He probably roads block a guy like Elijah Moore, but Elijah Moore is, kind of insurance on him as well. Josh Palmer gives them kind of arguably their only man coverage beater. I mean, you look at Josh Palmer, he was 10th among qualifying wide receivers in route success rate against man coverage. So that just gives them a guy that can beat man coverage. But when you also look at him too, he also couldn't keep Quentin Johnston off the field, played behind him. He's just never really filled the box score of his rookie contract with the Chargers, averaging under 40 yards per game. He just screams like rotational guy. You get Curtis Samuel back, Keon Coleman, these guys all scream like they're going to rotate in and out. So it's just really hard to gauge. It's a sum of parts, right? And then you factor in the running backs, they throw their ranks. And then on top of it all, the Bills don't throw a lot. Because, one, they're winning a lot of games. But you look at since they made the change to Joe Brady, their pass rate below expectation when you adjust for game script is below the league rate. They're actually -2%, below the base rate. So they also don't throw a lot with volume either. So they're just really tough from a fantasy standpoint.
Yeah, and that's a big change from certainly Dable 2 coordinators ago and even the guy that Brady replaced, Dorsey. That changed almost on a dime when Brady took over, it seemed.
Yeah.
Rich Rebar with us. Let's talk about Dalton Kincaid within this. I'm not sure his name has even come up yet. On ADP chasing this morning, I don't know, Rich, how it sounds to you, but to me, I sort of bristled finally at why does everybody just think he's bad? In fantasy, it seems that everybody's decided that he's bad. And it was explained to me, a couple theories on this. He had the one good game in college and whatever else. But I think he might be blocked by Shakir and Knox on this team. But, man, if I were the Bills, and maybe this has already been their thinking, I'd really want to get him more involved. But whether it's injuries, and we've got knee issues here that seem maybe a little bit serious, and the what you lay out as far as other options on the team, I don't know how much hope there is for Kincaid. I'd love to see him matter more in the red zone. Big body, but with Allen's rushing prowess and then Cook last year, they really just don't need it. I don't know, Rich. Like, what kind of hope do you have for him, Kincaid, to really, jump up in stats?
Well, I think from a large part why the disappointment lies with so many gamers is the expectations were too high last year, right? Like, everyone was looking with Stephon Diggs, leaving the Buffalo Bills and looking at their wide receiver room that Kincaid was going to make this massive spike in terms of production. He was drafted really highly in context of the tight end position, expecting that breakout. I was actually a little hesitant on him because the things that you kind of hinted at is that when coming out of college, he was a very much an Evan Ingram type of player. And when you have that player for fantasy football, like, you just need a lot of pass volume. Like, he's reception based. When he was on the field last year, he actually was he led the team in targets at 31% of the team targets. Was actually second among all tight ends. Now the rub is that when he played, he only ran a route on 65% of the dropbacks because of all those things we talked about, Dawson Knox. He is kind of a glorified slot receiver. He only played 39% of the snaps at actual tight end. That was the seventh fewest amongst all tight ends. 45% were in the slot, 15% were out wide. So when you have that type of player that needs a lot of receptions, you need a lot of pass volume. And the Bills just projected to be too good last year. And I was just like, well, I'm not going to pay the iron cost on a guy that needs a lot of catches. I think it's not going to throw a lot. Now we've seen that he's kind of fallen off. He's in like that tight end, like 12 to 15-ish type range. That is a palatable place to buy in on him. The problem is the upside, right? Like, you still need this team to throw more. We talked about Dawson Knox. When Dawson Knox was in the game, the Buffalo Bills ran the ball 45% of the time, 36% for Dalton Kincaid. He ran block, not Dawson Knox, that is, almost 125 more snaps than him. So when the Bills play in these bigger sets, Kincaid's not really on the field. He's not getting to run those kind of routes that are off the play action, right? So, like, those are just all things that are kind of blocking him. And then you hitting at the red zone, like, through 2 years, Dalton Kincaid has 7 targets while standing in the end zone. Keon Coleman at 8 last year led the team in 4 missed games. Like that. So you need a lot of catches, and you're not going to score touchdowns, right? Like, so that's just not a cocktail to present a lot of upside. I think the price is fair for him this year, but where is the upside, right? And then you talk about the usage for the Buffalo Bills. It was a little bit odd last year. So his rookie year, only 11% of his targets were at or behind the line of scrimmage. Last year it doubled. It went to 22%. They're throwing him all these quick hitters in the flat. Like, you probably watched a lot of these, and you saw them all. It's just like, well, where's the balance? Where are the intermediate targets? Because oddly enough, his deep targets went up too. He had his rookie year 7.7% deep target rate. Last year it almost doubled, 14.7%. The success wasn't there. He only caught 2 of 11 deep targets last year. So a little bit more success, we can get that yardage bump because, he was below 50 yards in 10 of his 13 games played last year. And then you talk about the health, right? Like, the knee injury, we'll see if he's over that. He also had a concussion and a collarbone injury. But the large problem comes just from he's not on the field as a full-time player. The Buffalo Bills don't throw enough because they're too good of a team, and that just kind of roadblocks a player like him because he's not going to score a lot of touchdowns, and that's kind of the barometer that is set for Dalton Kincaid right now.
Today I learned what a Morel Lavalley lesion is. That's what Kincaid was dealing with reportedly on his right knee. He might have had issues on both knees last year, and Rich, like, especially when it's your team, not that this is really objective, but like Gabe Davis had a down year before he left, and it was, he sprained his ankle in week 2. So what could you expect? Like, I don't know, maybe put him on the injury report once, maybe put Kincaid on the injury report. But so you never really know what to do with that, but physically it doesn't sound great either. Rich Rebar, our guest on the West Her Hotline. Do you have a favorite, either in terms of just production, period, or even through a fantasy lens, like based on where they're going, of the Bills' skill position players? Does anybody, maybe starting with Shakir or even Cook, who's not around but probably will be, I want to say, that works for you?
Yeah, and talk about Dalton Kincaid. Just the last point too is that Dawson Knox. This is probably, I would assume, the last year he's on the Bills. We'll see. He's due $17 million next year, and we've already seen some of the moves the Bills had to kind of operate with this offseason with Josh Allen's new contract. Josh Allen is a $36 million cap hit this year, but the remainder of that contract, it goes $50 million plus. And you look at Dawson Knox, he could save them over $10 million next year. So I imagine at least at base value, they're going to ask him to take a pay cut. And then if he doesn't, then we'll see how that plays out. So if you are in like a dynasty stance, like I still think there's a lot of runway for Dalton Kincaid. It's just the way the Bills kind of operate right now and kind of the way their team is looking on paper. I mean, obviously James Cook is like the one skill player that gets the most, like garners the most attention from the Bills. If you look at his first 3 years, it's almost a direct dead overlap to what Aaron Jones did in Green Bay. Like he's a very Aaron Jones type player. He may never get 300 touches, but he is a very explosive player. He can be an efficient player without getting that immense high workload to contribute to the pass game, the run game. I will say my favorite player to kind of at cost is still Keon Coleman, and for a couple of reasons. One, like year two wide receivers have always been kind of a fantasy football hack. If you're looking for guys that beat ADP, there's been no tried and true like value spots in year two wide receivers, especially guys that aren't costly or maybe disappointed a little bit like Keon Coleman did in the counting stat department. But there are a lot of positives, I think, at his cost where to get as like a wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6. Well, one, he averaged almost 20 yards per catch, 19.2 yards per catch. That was 7th among wide receivers. In these wide receiver 1 and 2 sets that we talked about that Shakir's on the field, like this is where Keon Coleman thrived. That's where he averaged those 19 yards per catch. And despite missing 4 games, he was the guy. He led the team with 8 end zone targets. And before he had that wrist injury in week 9, we saw him to get a little bit of steam. He had the 4 for 125 game against the Titans. That was the game after they got, Amari Cooper. Then in Seattle, he had the 5 for 70 and 1, then hurts his wrist and doesn't come back until week 15. Then he's kind of lost in the sauce the remainder of the season. So anytime I can get, kind of a big body guy that could potentially score double-digit touchdowns, which is what he can. Like, is he going to catch 75 passes? Absolutely not. But at a guy in like the wide receiver 50 to 60 range that could potentially catch 8 to 10 plus touchdowns, that's a guy I'm just going to throw, let the fantasy gods take the wheel, especially attached to the number 1 quarterback in ADP.
Well, I know we are in the best shape of his life season here, but Coleman got, much like Kincaid, sort of laid out by the coach and GM when the season ended. Work hard, learn to be a pro, like all that sort of stuff. Get stronger, come back from injury. And the reviews so far here early this spring, Rich, are very positive. I even heard the show before ours talking about how the coordinator's talking about him being more dialed in. I shouldn't say more dialed in, but asking good questions in meetings about the playbook. And so maybe that year 2 breakthrough to some extent is heating up for Coleman.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I mean, you just want to chase these guys that are cheap and have kind of that touchdown upside. And then year 2 wide receivers, again, tried and true. The little fantasy hack for everyone listening.
What are you doing at tight end? Or how, if you're not drafting a lot, like how are you looking at that position? It's always a big topic. The elite tight ends. Bowers is almost in the first round. McBride is in the second round at underdog for one. Do you find yourself feeling like that's a good investment, or would you rather wait? I think you can do almost anything myself. I mean, the names at the bottom are kind of interesting sometimes, or in the middle, but I mean, Bowers and McBride are a cut above.
Yeah, and I would include George Kittle, who led the tight ends in fantasy points per game last year. I think the gap from him and the other two is still a little too wide, especially with the 49ers and kind of this transition period. I think the 49ers have signaled they want to be more of a traditional drop-back team than they've been in recent years. I mean, you get rid of Deebo Samuel via trade, a guy that sucked up a lot of targets that were almost manufactured touches in a sense, a lot of touches near the line of scrimmage and behind the line of scrimmage. Also, remember when the season opened, they released Kyle Juszczyk. And granted, that was part of saving money, but they were willing to say, we don't know if we're going to get him back. And I do think they're going to play a lot more 11 personnel and play a lot more 3 wide receiver stuff, especially when Brandon Ayuk gets up to speed. Mm-hmm. But George Kittle is still a guy that you just look at his production year in and year out, and from an efficiency stance, he's just so good. He just does things that other tight ends can't do. And from a spike week stance, if you're especially in these best balls, there's no player since he's entered the NFL that operates from a spike week stance like he does. It's always the volatility of him because he's on a team that doesn't throw a lot of passes that people get frustrated with. But from you're in these best ball leagues, like his ceiling's just as high as McBride and Bowers, and I think the gap is exploitable there. And then after Kittle's off the board, like if I don't get him and I'm not a spot to get him, then I'm just largely waiting and throwing darts at the position. I do like Dallas Goedert. I think that this is a team, the Philadelphia Eagles are a team that are going to have to throw more this year. I mean, they led by, or they trailed in the fourth quarter of games 62 snaps last year.
Wow.
It's just like this team's going to be pressed more to have to throw more passes this season. Jalen Hurts only averaged 11 dropbacks in the second half of games last year. Just by default, that's going to go up. So you look at Dallas Goedert's a guy I'm kind of signaling, TJ Hawkinson coming back kind of where he's at. And then just kind of waiting. Hunter Henry is probably my favorite value guy.
Mm-hmm.
All of his peripherals stand out from a usage stance. Everyone is on Drake May too. And I don't know if I could say that around these parts. People listening.
It's cool. You're fine. You're fine.
But everyone is on Drake May, and the arrow pointing up for him from a fantasy stance. But Hunter Henry's going like tight end 20 still, and this is a guy that's going to not come off the field. He's going to be involved in the red zone. He was another guy when you look at when he was getting targeted on the field was in the top 10 at tight ends. And so if we're pointing the arrow up for Drake May, I'm just going to say, hey, it's a cheap stacking partner for him with Hunter Henry.
Absolutely. I feel like when I draft May, I kind of need Henry because I don't, right in that same range is where it's Kyle Williams or Diggs before that. And if you're not on them, then it's either Henry or one of these 7 other tight ends they're dragging around. Very good, Rich. Well, I'm glad we could have you on. I'm guessing you don't do a lot of these hits for as many times as I see you, where you're actually literally just talking on your phone and not on a stream.
No, not very often. I will say, not to pander to my audience, I've been fortunate to be able to do this for over a decade and been exposed to all the fan bases. And I've always thought the Bills fan base was my favorite and the best to interact with. So you guys have had that feather in your cap for a while for my book.
And I think they, or we, if I may, will definitely keep you honest. If we don't if we don't agree, this fan base will tell you, Rich. So you might, if you like that, that's probably healthy. That's probably good. I have a close friend who's a huge fan of yours, and I know he's listening today. So really excited we could have you on.
Absolutely, I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Until we meet again, whether that's at a craps table, at a conference, or some other stream, all the best to you.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, Rich. Rich Rebar at Lord Reebs, Reebs, on, what do you call X?
Sure. That's, yeah. I've never referred to it as that, but fine. Yeah.
You're going to have to start.
Yeah, I guess.
Dalton Kincaid, thoughts?
I don't have to do anything.
So, make this so challenging. 803-0550. Sal at 5 with a report from Bills practice today. Today was the one day a week where the reporters are privileged enough to be able to watch. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here. This is WGR.
Media day over at Bills OTAs. No Josh Allen, James Cook, Cam Lewis, or Joey Bosa. We'll get more, though, on practice today. Sal Capaccio set to join the show in just about a half hour at 5 o'clock. Before practice, the coordinator spoke with the media, defensive coordinator Bobby Babich and offensive coordinator Joe Brady. And then following practice, we also heard from special teams coordinator Chris Tabor. If you missed any of that, you can find it on our website, WGR550.com, or on the Odyssey app. And OTAs, they're going to wrap up this week. Mandatory minicamp will then be next week, running Tuesday through Thursday. The Knicks are relieving head coach Tom Thibodeau of his duties. Thibodeau was the Knicks head coach for the past 5 seasons, leading the Knicks to the playoffs in 4 of them, and this year led the team to the Eastern Conference Final, where they ultimately lost to Indiana. But this was their first Eastern Conference Final in 25 years. And the Bisons, they are in Syracuse versus the Mets. First pitch at 6:35, and you can listen to that on our sister station, The Bet 1520. It's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Being able to adjust is something that you have to be able to do. And I thought overall we did a pretty good job of that. And then the last thing I think is just for anybody going through something the first time, it's everything's a first time. So now you've been in those situations and now you're a little bit more scarred per se based on the situations and how fast those things can come up. So those are some of the things that I think I learned. Looking forward to year 2.
Bills defensive coordinator Bobby Babich. Coordinators spoke today. Sal will join us at 5 to enlighten us as to what he thought might have been interesting. Brady is, I don't know, I'm not saying Babich isn't. I just don't have as firm an opinion on him as a press conference giver. Brady, you know, he doesn't miss. He's just like bam, 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 bam with the names of the running backs we have and their nicknames. And, like, it's good for these guys. Here's the list. Boom, here's everybody. Didn't miss one. Mm-hmm. Cook not being here is not perfect, but it's good for these reasons. Next question. Brady, he's kind of a fast talker, mm-hmm. and he just kind of, like, doesn't really leave you an opening, which is, I'm sure, is how he wants it.
It's effective. Useful for...
Doesn't help me.
Right.
But doesn't do anything for me. Though. What would he say about Kincaid? Maybe he's getting that question. Rich Rebar with us just before. 7 end zone targets in 2 years. To Coleman's 8 last year alone, and he was hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So
Kincaid was hurt last year too, but still, sure, yes.
He was, but to a point at least, evidence that the Bills are not inclined or that in the moment Allen is not looking for him, leaning on him at all in those spots. Targets in the end zone. He had one in that Monday night game I went to against Jacksonville at the back of the end zone. Allen makes a great play on that. It's a good catch by Kincaid for a score, but it's one of, 4 touchdowns he has in 2 years?
It was only 2 again last year.
I think so.
It was 2 the rookie year. I know that. And let me check, and it was 2 again last year.
I think certainly you can be optimistic. Listen to the Bills talk mostly. I mean, I'm not talking about the coordinators, but, you know, you don't hear anything but optimism. You hear about being young. He's not young for a third-year player, but still, like, young for a player. And from the Bills, you get the optimistic position, like, as a rule.
You've got the injury thing to lean on last year. Like, if he had somehow had that year and not had any injuries, I mean, then I think you'd be in a full-blown crisis. What sort of tempers any criticism of him, not to say that he doesn't warrant any, really it's the two of them together, Allen and Kincaid, just not working. And, like, that doesn't have to all be on Kincaid, although Allen does manage to connect with lots of guys. So it feels more like a Kincaid problem, and maybe that's injury-related too, but you've got that crutch. If we didn't have that crutch, if he'd been healthy last year and still, like, in this everybody eats model, he just was what he was, holy cow. I mean, like, what are you doing over there? But you have that, the injury buffers that, I think, to an extent, and that's not to be, like, skeptical of that as an explanation, but I I'm having a hard time just assuming he's gonna smash this year or something. The right point to be made, healthy or not, is how many guys they have that are utilized in ways that eat into what he could do for you. And if you are not going to have your offense revolve around the most talented guys or the best guys, you simply don't even want to bother weeding that out. You just, everybody eats. That's it. It's very, get out your granola and just play some hacky sack. It's a very, hippie,
crunchy.
Yeah, it's very crunchy. Normally, I would have thought last year that at some point someone would really emerge there. And I guess Shakir led them in receptions, but they didn't have a go-to guy. And I thought that would kind of happen naturally, that someone would present themselves as that. I'm the guy that's open all the time. I'm the guy that beats man coverage. I'm the guy on 3rd and 7. Like that Allen is going to think, I need a guy that's going to win. Where is he? And that just never really, unless it is Shakir, and I'm just ignoring the obvious because he did lead them in catches by a healthy amount. I just didn't think we'd be going into another year of this. I thought someone would have taken it. But who was that going to be? I guess. I mean, they traded for Cooper. That's the only guy that's ever had that MO, and he didn't even have it here at all, really. Coleman got hurt. He's a rookie. Kincaid was injured and is a tight end who's not on the field all the time. And there's all kinds of reasons for that we talked a lot about with our last guest. It's just sort of really mixed up. And so within that, a healthy Kincaid, I don't know, maybe year one is what you should hope for. And you probably wanted more than that when you drafted him, but if you get to 70 catches, really, if you get to 70 catches but the touchdowns, what do I need here? Quadruple? I mean, that's a lot to ask, but
8?
5, 8, somewhere, something, a number there that is like, oh, well, that was good.
Well, the thing about that is, and we went through this with Knox. He had an 8-touchdown season, Knox, I think. And there was no data-driven reason at all, nothing close to it, to think that was likely to happen again. But we loved it.
Might have even been 9.
Maybe it was 9.
Yeah.
It was meaningful. It was impactful. There was, who cares, maybe you would say, to whether it's going to happen again. I got a lot out of him. And so if that happens with Kincaid, I mean, it's not knives out anymore. It's sort of like, okay, well, I got that. Even if it's not sustainable, even if which is almost the same thing to say, random, you'll take it. Everybody would take that from him right now.
Yeah.
For Allen to have, the counterpoint to these is always, well, do they really need this? Because look at him. But for Allen to have a go-to red zone target, let alone just target period, I come back to always season on the line in the playoffs. Who is the guy? Diggs was not consistent in that area, and he left. Davis was more consistent, I might want to say. Certainly had higher, the 13 seconds game is an all-timer.
Yeah.
He had big moments for them in the postseason, came closer, maybe, to this. This season, last year ends, and they just played it like they did not have any idea. Everything was short. Couldn't get Cooper off. Couldn't get Kincaid off. Shakir is, kind of limited. Samuel did a little bit against Denver, but Coleman was 1 catch a game. Nobody, 29 points, but nobody was that. Nobody was like, okay, it's 3rd and 6 and we're doing this right now. 3rd and 5 or less, Allen runs. So, you get away with a lot when you have him. I don't know. Kincaid, I feel like this is from talking to Rich and talking about him on ADP Chasing this morning. I brought him up. Did I say this yet? You and I talked about it off the air. I brought him up to the guys as like, or maybe I even brought it up to Rich Rebar. Everybody's so down on him in fantasy, like numbers-wise. Are we sure that that's right to be? Are we sure that we're not missing something? And one of our guys on that show, Jacob Sanderson, said, what's going to happen to give him the snaps that he would need to put down a bigger season? That's where it starts. Is he on the field?
Right. That's why I was saying, like, his health doesn't really even enter into that, unless you want to posit that they used him, his injuries impacted how they were using him. But I don't know. I think his usage wasn't that different last year than it was the year before.
So Knox is going to play. This is the same as last year, I think, where he plays more running downs and just on the field, and they like that. They're paying him. That's working. They can run the ball, whether it's blocking to Knox helps them. They see it like that, and he'll make the occasional play in the passing game too. That isn't changing for Kincaid. Shakir is not going away. Rich had a great stat. Like, this is the number one thing with Rich Rebar is like these kind of numbers. He said last year when the Bills had 2 or fewer receivers on the field for a play, Shakir ran a total of 25 routes for the season. Like, he was really not on the field.
Right. They got to be in 3 wides or more for him to be on the field.
That's right. So obviously he's your slot receiver. They gave him a big contract this offseason. They like him, which that obviously demonstrates. Is he coming off the field to make more time for? No. And then, like, what else has to happen? Is Kincaid going to play with his hand down?
No.
That's not really him. He does a little bit. Sal's excited, I think, about this new tight end that they drafted that maybe can be Alec Anderson only with pass-catching eligibility. That doesn't help Kincaid. If he's on the team, what does it add up to?
Yeah.
I think they're going to have a very tough time getting to a point with this player where we ever say, great pick. I think what you want to do, I mean, again, this is always the case. If you win it, who cares? Nobody cares about any of your moves. They were all good because you won it. If that happens, everything disappears. If they don't, and we're like this for years to come, breaking down all the literally arguing to what some think is a ridiculous extent about their pass-catching talent on a team that literally set the franchise record in scoring. I mean, that will just continue, and Kincaid's at the heart of that, and so is Coleman. But he is at the heart of that because this was their one first-round bet. Even Coleman wasn't a first-round bet. Cooper was in a trade because he was a first-round pick a decade ago. Still not. They gave up a third. Kincaid is their one first-round bet in this area, and I don't know how they might plan to get him to a point where it looks like it was worth it.
Yeah.
Unless they win, then everything was worth it.
Right. Yeah, I think we're also, I mentioned when we were talking to our guest that we're in best shape of his life season here. Not that anyone has exactly said that phrase, but you know what I mean by when I say that. I think the audience, knows. We're also in, we're going to do this and that with this guy and that guy, and there's no clearly defined. I caught a clip today. The coordinators are talking. So slot versus outside, inside, outside. We're going to use Brady today. I think said something to the effect of, I got to make sure that I get Shakir in different spots and not have him just limited to the slot. Let's take that for a spin. Let's remember that and take that for a spin in October. Let's see what's happening. Once we get through 4 or 5 games, what is that happening at all? Because that is a way to, you want to have everybody eats and, all the hacky sack and the granola and the whole thing. Okay. Make it really just a universe where everyone's interchangeable. So Coleman's in the slot, and Shakir is outside, and Kincaid is outside, and he's in the slot. And maybe that's a way to open up something for guys who really will thrive in the slot if they actually get some opportunity there, and Shakir isn't just basically squatting on that spot. But he's your most effective guy, and that's his most effective spot, it seems so far. But maybe that'll change. I don't know. This is the time of the year where they talk about doing that, and then the games start, and it's like, oh, tell me again about how you drafted your running back to use as a slot receiver.
Exactly.
Okay? Tell me all about it.
Players in different roles. You watch. Are you implying that maybe Fish is the soundtrack to the Bills' offense?
Yes, very much so.
Fish? I mean, is that a case of the show ever sounding older, Fish, or are they still as current or about as current as 30 years ago?
I mean, there's a new generation of that sort of band that's out there. There's not as big as Fish, but I don't think fish is aging us. I don't think that's a problem.
Okay, good. That's good.
I think we're
Like to
we're
avoid
okay.
that when possible. Believe it or not, as many times as I ask if the show has ever sounded older. I mean, we're not exactly talking about the cast of the Dick Van Dyke Show here. I mean,
No.
Fish is the 90s.
Right. If you had referenced Quicksilver Messenger Service, I think we would have been in a little bit of trouble.
What's that?
It's a 60s psychedelic band.
It's a band?
Way back, yeah.
Really? That's a good pull right there. I thought it was actually a thing where you would send messages.
Nope.
Through
Rock and
tin
roll
cans
band.
or something. Yep. Or using pigeons.
One of my kids is a big fan, so they're in
It's
the
a
rotation
60s
in the
band.
house. Yeah.
All right. Quicksilver Messenger Service.
Right.
QSMS, some would
I suppose.
shorten it to.
Yeah.
Sal coming up at 5. A lot of talk about Kincaid, some more about Max Hairston lately. I'm starting to hear one thing all the time about Max Hairston. Bill's first-round pick, cornerback. We'll get to that. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, WGR. So I bet what happened to you happens a lot.
Yeah.
Is that a secret?
No.
Okay,
I'm
good.
kidding around. My wife's asleep.
It almost sounded by your tone there you were going to say she was in Spain, but
Yeah, no. Anyway, go ahead. Yes.
Well, it's your story.
What did I do? I went. I lost a towel, so I had a little extra time, and I swung by one of the big golf stores on my way to work. And
one of the big golf stores.
One of the big golf stores. There's a couple different ones. I think they might be the same ownership, but they have different names. Anyways, none of them are paying me to say their names, so I won't say their names. So I went to the big golf store to get a new towel to throw on the bag there because I'm just, I like to clean my clubs as I'm playing, and I didn't have a towel today. So I'm like, I got a little extra time. I'm going to go check out the putters. I've never really done this. I've been just using whatever I have, basically. And
sure.
I'm not super comfortable with the one that I'm currently using. And so a couple caught my eye. The first one I grabbed was a tall guy. Taller than anything I've ever, not belly or anything, but just, taller. I don't have to hunch down quite as much. And they have like a 10 or 12 foot putt there. There are 5 balls out next to one hole and then another hole 10 or 12 feet away. And I took this new putter and I made 5 putts in a row going the one way. I'm like, oh, okay. I went and got the balls out of the hole and came back the other way, made 4 out of 5. Did the other way again, 4 out of 5. I'm like, okay, I'm buying a putter. That was it. It was not. I didn't get fitted. There was nothing scientific. There was no tracking. I just picked a club off the. It had a very thin plastic covering on the head of the putter. Like I was hitting it with this plastic.
Just wrapped.
Yeah, it's wrapped.
Basically.
Like you shrink wrap a boat, except it's just a putter head, right? And I made these putts. I'm like, all right.
I think you should leave that on.
I'm just buying too late because I'm buying a putter today. That's what's happening.
A couple things you probably should have done: measure the hole, the size of the hole,
make sure
the balls are not magnetized. Because if I had a big golf store, even I would want to make sure that's an easy putt, as easy as possible. Make the hole a little bigger.
Yeah.
Make the balls even maybe a little smaller, and there's not going to be any break in this putt.
Right.
Although I hate a straight putt.
I hate a straight putt.
I will read a break into every putt, and even if it's not there, because I just don't like perfect. Because I don't know, it's not my favorite.
Yeah,
a straight putt. I'd rather have I think I like a right to left putt more than a left to right. Maybe that's normal.
Yeah. But, well, I swung I hit a total of 15 putts with this putter, and decided to buy it because
you made 13.
Because I made 13 of the 15, and they weren't tap-ins. What I've been not liking about the putter I had been using is that I just don't feel steady with it. Like I can see I see it moving, the wrong way, like towards me or away from me as I'm coming through the ball. Not every time, but occasionally it happens. And that did not happen one time with this putter. It just the balance of it, the way it fit me, it just felt like I felt like a pendulum.
Shouldn't have taken that wrapper off.
So. New
putter. At least give it a few tries with the wrapper on.
See how that goes.
If it goes badly, you got to get it wrapped.
Yeah.
Rewrapped.
Yep.
Sal next. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
Media Day today over at Bills OTA. No Josh Allen, James Cook, Cam Lewis, or Joey Bosa. We'll get more on practice today. Sal Capaccio set to join the show next. Sal also has a piece up at our website, WGR550.com, for more on today. Before practice, we did hear from the coordinators, defensive coordinator Bobby Babich and offensive coordinator Joe Brady. And then following practice, we also heard from special teams coordinator Chris Tabor. And if you missed any of that, you can find it on the Odyssey app or on our website, WGR550.com. OTAs are going to wrap up this week. Mandatory minicamp will then be next week, and it will run Tuesday through Thursday. Patriots linebacker Jelani Tavi suffered a calf injury today. He is expected to be held out until training camp. And Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud continuing to not throw at OTAs. He is dealing with a shoulder issue. Head coach DeMeco Ryans says there's no concerns on his end. It appears to just be shoulder soreness. And the Knicks, they are relieving head coach Tom Thibodeau of his duties. Thibodeau was New York's head coach for the past 5 seasons, leading the Knicks to the playoffs 4 of those seasons, and this year led him to the Eastern Conference Final, the first time for the Knicks in 25 years. Bisons are in Syracuse versus the Mets. First pitch at 6:35. You can listen to that on our sister station, the Bet 1520. And just under 100 WGR VIP golf cards remain. 8 amazing golf experiences for the low price of $129. For all the details and to purchase, go to getmyperks.com. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
I lead you to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years on a 50-win season, another 50-win season, and this is the thanks I get. I'm fired. Makes you think. You know, it happens in hockey, things like this sometimes. The Knicks went farther than they've gone in a long time, and, you know, the coach is out.
Tough racket.
Sal Capaccio with us now on the Wester Hotline. We'll get to the events of the day, but I'm sure you'd find that interesting too, Sal, right? I mean, as closely as you may or may not follow the Knicks or the NBA, you know, you get this sometimes, and there are Sean McDermott comparisons. We had it with the Leafs and the Bills, and here with the Knicks. Like, the idea of a coach only being able to take you so far. I guess we'll never know if this guy could have done better with the Knicks, and we'll judge it based on whoever replaces him and how that goes. But this continues to be somewhat of a topic of conversation, not probably within the Bills, but about them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you want to relate to Sean McDermott, I can see the parallels, and people asking, I always bring up the comparison. I was living in Florida when this conversation was going on with Tony Dungy, and I would say the same thing, which is, oh my gosh, like, look what this guy's done for you. He's taken you to the NFC Championship games. The team was terrible, right? An organization and franchise for so long. And they did actually get rid of him, and they brought in John Gruden. They won a Super Bowl the next year. We know the Andy Reid comparisons, the same thing in Philadelphia. It's not apples to apples. It never is, especially when you talk about a different sport, different dynamics. I would say this, though, guys. I have not read anything inside about, like, what's happened today. Maybe you have. Maybe you know more details. I've been engrossed with, Bill's OTAs today. But I saw the headline, and the first thing I thought of was there's got to be more to just that part of it, right? There's got to be more to just he's taken us as far as he can go. Maybe that could be it. But to me, it's got to be, there's some internal strife. There's a disagreement on how to build the team, what to do going forward, things like that.
Yeah, one of the first things that I brought up when talking about it, hockey, basketball, especially basketball. I mean, you've got so few players. The coaching staffs, I'm sure, have gotten bigger over the years, but still, how many assistant coaches does Sean McDermott have? 30, 25? Like, there's a lot of people there, systems in place, and all that sort of stuff. And because there's such a small number of players, the star players carry a lot more weight. Right, so you only have 12 exit meetings to do, or maybe you don't even do exit meetings with the guys who are like bench guys. You probably do, just to be thorough. But one star player says something about the coach and not liking something, and I think you could get a GM or an owner to go like, all right, we got to make a change. That's it. The star player, and I don't know that any of that happened either. I haven't read deeply on it either. That news broke right as our show was starting.
Well, the one thing we did have is the star player Brunson, like walking off the set to a question about whether they had the right coach. Like he would just not listen to that.
Right.
So we at least have that in the Knicks case.
Right, and that could be positive or negative. That could be, I don't want to tell you how I really feel, so I'm going to walk away, criticizing the coach, or I'm tired of sticking up for this guy, and I don't want to take the question. But either way, it's very different than football, is all I'm saying, Sal, obviously.
Yeah, but I mean, you're right. I think you go back to Michael Jordan, right? Basketball, I think, has been always more like this than any other sport. Man, his name escapes me. You guys might know. This is what happens when you're getting older, who Jordan's first coach was. And
Doug Collins.
Doug Collins, thank you, Mike. And that was it, right? It was like kind of this, well, it wasn't the right coach for Jordan, and that was the talk. And then same thing with Kobe Bryant over the years with a couple of – Allen Iverson was famous with this, right? Like it wasn't the right coach for him, or and these basketball organizations, the NBA, have always seemed to really kind of go in the direction of whatever the star player wants. Now, you could probably say that about football. Is that what happened with Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers?
Mm-hmm.
Not really sure, right? I mean, like you could definitely get there with some football scenarios. I think there was a thing with John Elway and Dan Reeves actually towards the end of their tenure together. So, but basketball has been more like that than football is.
It's all, dare I say it, it's almost like relationships too. Like I feel like I've gone as far as I can go with you, right? Just I've grown as much as I think I can with you. Anyway, tough business. All right, Sal.
I mean, that's the Stephon Diggs Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
Yep.
A couple years ago, right? I think that there was a recognition for right or wrong, whatever happened behind the scenes, that I think both sides agreed that like they couldn't go any farther with each other.
Yeah, fair enough. So to the present day Bills. No Josh Allen at practice.
What an outrage.
Yeah, sure. What does that look like? I mean, he's such a presence, and so much would revolve around him in these practices. Is it strange to watch them without him there?
It is a bit strange. He brings, like you said, I think that's the right word, Mike, presence. It's not just his ability, his presence out there. At these OTAs, by the way, there are some people like who are like some, I guess you say, corporate sponsors or however they want to phrase it, like some partners or whatever. That There's some people on the sidelines, and I'm thinking, some people out there today, and they don't get to see Josh Allen, right? Like they go out there, that's probably the first guy they want to see, anybody, when they go out to practice, right? So you think about it from that dynamic a little bit. Like he's the show, and yeah, we're out there watching. We know Josh Allen's the starting quarterback. I'm not watching to see if there's some quarterback battle, but I watch Josh Allen every day.
Yeah,
I watch his movements. I take video of him and throwing and how he's interacting with his coaches and his teammates. It's always just something that's always there that you watch. And then you get to the on the field part of it. And I wrote about it today and just posted at WGR550.com. I tweeted about it, which is like there's just a noticeable difference in the offense without Josh Allen. Now, granted, there's no pads. They have helmets on. No, they're not hitting each other. And you're not taking quarterbacks down to the ground anyway. But there were several times where I think it just would have been a sack when I don't think it would have been if Josh Allen was there, because you just see the difference in getting rid of the ball, making the play earlier, making the read earlier, and getting the ball out of your hands. And that was definitely noticeable today.
Right. Yeah, the processing. To succeed, I mean, Allen gets a ton of credit, rightly so, for his athleticism and like the raw skills, the talent that he came here with and has honed as well as he has. But you got to have the quick mind and like know where you're going, and all that stuff has to click into place. Otherwise, those athletic gifts aren't going to get you anywhere. So, yeah, I mean, that's a big difference between a backup caliber player and a starting player at that position, is how quickly they can decide what's happening.
Yeah, and look, I mean, there was no James Cook, but I'm not sitting there going, oh, my God, what a difference without James Cook. Now, listen, that doesn't take away anything from James Cook, right? But the offense just runs, still as kind of efficiently when you hand the ball to Ray Davis behind that O-line. And I know I guess that, the bigger picture, could be an indictment, I guess, the way I say it on James Cook. But you guys get the point. There's just a big difference because these guys, they rotate anyway, right? It's not like you see James Cook on the field 100% of the time making all these plays. Sometimes he's not on the field. So, you see that difference without Josh.
Sal Capaccio with us on the Wester Hotline. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog on WGR. I'm starting to hear mostly the same point made about Maxwell Hairston, the Bills' first-round pick, cornerback out of Kentucky, which is, I'm thinking of Mina Kimes, I'm thinking of different analysts who seem to just be hitting this one point around that he's boom bust. It's an important position, and I don't know what exactly it means. Like, is there something about his style of play? Probably there is, that have people, or at least some people, in this state of mind, which is like, I don't know, there's upside, but also maybe downside here. Is that close to how you see it?
I would say so. I describe this draft class, especially because of Max Harrison, but others, as kind of the biggest swing type of class the Bills have had, meaning they've taken the biggest swings, but with those swings might come some, risks involved. And I think it's a really good question when you say, what does that mean, boom or bust, with a lot of guys, right? And then you listen to Tre'Davious White talk about Max Harrison today. It's a good question. I think the best way I would describe it, and I do agree that it can be like that, which is he has all these amazing athletic traits. But a guy like that, he's always been the best athlete on the field wherever he's gone. He's been the fastest player. He's probably been the best player with the best hands and all these kinds of things. So a lot of times guys like that just aren't refined. And it's how much you can refine them. And if they can dial in on those, it's really the margins. If they can get in on the margins, then, okay, that's just something that he's going to have to do a little better that he never had to do. He could make up for it at Kentucky. There was a lot of talk when he was drafted about how, even I think Brandon Beane said, like, if he got beat, he closed and made up the play, right? That's not going to happen at the NFL level like that, guys, right? You're going against these incredible wide receivers. So he's going to have to learn and put himself in a position where that doesn't happen, because he can't just say, I'm just going to make it up because of my speed. And then, like, today, I will tell you, like, it was an uneven day for him, I thought, today. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there was a play where he's in good position on Tyrell Shavers. But Shavers is taller, and the ball was thrown nicely. I don't remember who threw it. It's kind of over the middle, running towards maybe the right sideline, and Shavers goes up and grabs it over him. And you're like, man, Harrison had good coverage there, but, maybe in college he makes that play because he's not going against an NFL wide receiver who's got the skill and the height that he does like that. There was another time where he had to, I heard the coaches barking, and whoever was at safety kind of yelled to Max to kind of move over or move up, like kind of put him in a position. Those are things maybe in college he could get away with. And I think the boomer bust comes in where, boy, if he gets those things, you coach him and he's coachable, he understands that, and those things come together, you're looking at a really high-level player because all that other stuff is already there. But if you don't get that and that doesn't come together, then those mistakes are going to magnify at this level.
Yeah, I boom or bust. When I hear that phrasing, I think this is a guy that's going to want to gamble.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm gonna want to jump routes, that kind of,
especially right.
Right. And I guess I want to say I welcome that. I mean, I know that there is a downside to it. The bust comes, and that can be a busted double move, and the guy's open, and that's it. It's over. Touchdown, easy throw. But man, I think the idea of having a guy that will take chances. I liked Rasul Douglas for this when he first got here, and then last year it just never really popped again. I don't know if he was just not the same player that he had been before he got injured late the season prior or what happened, but I like a guy that's got a little gambler in him back there.
Yeah, I don't disagree either, Bulldog, and I'll say partly because we haven't seen that from the corners other than that 8-game sample of Rasul Douglas, when he first got here. You're right. The Bills have always drafted, and this is part of my point when I said, when the Bills drafted this year, I said, I think they've taken swings this year, whereas I think in the years past, the Bills have really drafted for the floor. And I'm not telling you they went out and consciously did this, but to me it seems like the players they got in years past, when you go through their draft history, boy, they've just really got guys who could add to the depth, who have good floors. They develop. Mm-hmm. You have a 6th-round pick in DeMar Hamlin who's going on his second contract. That's a really good pick in the NFL, right? I mean, like, there are guys, Jaquan Johnson lasted 4 years in this league. Like, those are good, solid draft picks that you get that have these higher floors. But what's the real ceiling on guys like that? Now you get a guy like Max Harrison, to me, boy, he's got that ceiling. But, boy, you got to be ready for, is that floor going to be higher? Because the floor could actually be lower because of everything that you just said. And that's, I think, where the boomer bust comes in. And that's why I think this year they went a little bit more of a, okay, we're going to go for the higher ceiling, but with that ceiling does come a chance for a lower floor when it doesn't go right.
Still no team for Douglas, by the way, like Amari Cooper has not signed with anyone here this offseason. Sal, I learned, as I mentioned to our guest earlier, Rich Rebar, a new term today called a Morel-Lavallee lesion. A, quote, uncommon, end quote, right knee injury from Dalton Kincaid. We knew there was something. We had, Dawson Knox after the season talking about Kincaid maybe playing with a torn ligament as well. I guess, I'm not sure this is anything new to you. To me, it's like it's more than I thought it was, and maybe a little bit scary for what his future might be, but I don't really know if I'm right in that respect. How much of a talking point for you is Kincaid and his knees?
It's not been as much from me. It is from a lot of fans. I get it. I posted a picture today of Dalton and Dawson standing next to each other, and Dawson's got a bit of a wrap, on his knee. Some tape. His knee is taped up, but it's not a big deal. He's just got some tape. And Dalton's got a
full-length wrap on his one leg, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a compression sleeve.
Right, okay.
But Bulldog, that's what's happening is, pulled up, people are looking at it and going, wait a minute. Okay, I thought he was fine. Why is he wearing a compression sleeve? And as you know, athletes wear compression sleeves. It helps with blood flow and all these different kinds of things. But it could be because, people are he's thinking, okay, I got to do this to be a little bit more protective for whatever reason. And I think that when that happens, I think what's happening is every single picture and video I know that I put out or anybody else does about Dalton Kincaid is getting so scrutinized and analyzed. Is he bigger? How much bigger is he? How is he moving right now? Does he have his knee wrapped? Does he have tape on something? So I do think it's a big talking point. My thought is just someone who covers the team who's around it every day is it's May. He had an injury he went through last year. They have a medical staff that's trained and it's going to be working with him. We heard even today he's living in the weight room all year. When we get to August in training camp, and then especially when you get into the season, that's when I'll be able to tell a little bit more of, is this more of a concern?
Fair enough. The coordinators both spoke today. Any interesting takeaways for you, starting with Joe Brady?
Yeah, for Brady, I thought, I asked him specifically, listen, he says it's a new year. Every year is a new year, right, and everything you do. Well, that's true, but he's in a unique situation where even though it's a new year, you really only have two differences on the entire roster on offense. You have the two wide receivers out, Cooper and Matt Collins, and the two wide receivers in. And that is Joshua Palmer, he said, by the way, Joshua, and Elijah Moore. That's it. Everything else is the same. So, how do you can build on that? You can really just kind of take all of that and go from where you were. And his response was, look, of course, that helps. He said, but if you do that, that's basically becoming too comfortable. You can never do that. You still need to go back and figure out what can you be better at? Where can you go from there? There's always going to be new things, and teams are going to attack you differently. And I like that response, right? It's not, hey, we scored 30 points a game, and we have pretty much everybody coming back, so we're going to go out there and we're just going to continue to go even higher. It's no, we still have a lot of things we didn't do right last year. Where can we build on those things? What can we do better? So that's what I thought from Joe Brady. As far as Bobby Babich is concerned, a little bit of the same. Bobby's going into his second full year, and he said, last year I sat up here and said, everything that happens to me is going to be the first time happening, right? You're always going to have that first time that you go through something. He said, and that happened, but you still aren't fully prepared for that first time happening until it happens. And he said, this year, one thing that, and he didn't get specific on this, it's very interesting, I thought, and I wish, I'm sure he wouldn't get specific. But he said, even starting with him, he believes they have to have a more consistent approach on a weekly basis. And I wonder what exactly that means from game planning. And to me, that's like game planning, right? Okay, maybe they were trying to do a little too much on a week-to-week instead of being themselves, if that makes sense. That's how I interpret it. He didn't say that, but I maybe got that kind of vibe.
That could mean a few different things.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see, and it will take a little while here, obviously. I mean, not just through the summer in preseason and watching practices, Sal, because I don't know how much of a clue we'll get about what they plan to do with all the different personnel, the new personnel on that side of the ball. It is quite different than on offense because you've got new guys up front, you've got new guys on the edges and the corner, maybe a new starting safety in Cole Bishop. So there's a lot of moving parts there, and I wonder how just different it will be. But like I already alluded to, Hoyt and Ogunjobi, guys that are certainly to varying degrees. I think Hoyt factors in a bigger way than Ogunjobi. They're out for 6 weeks, so we don't even get to see that take shape as the season begins. But still, with the new guys up front, I mean, Landon Jackson and Walker in the middle, assuming he's healthy enough to play starting when training camp gets here or even mini camp next week, because I think they've been slow playing him. But there's just a lot of new moving parts up front.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, let me say about Bobby Babich, I think I've probably talked to you guys about this before a little bit. Like, Bobby Babich is going to crush it when he's a head coach someday. If he ever gets that opportunity, he already crushes it as a defensive coordinator. What I mean from that is from a media standpoint. He's just great to listen to. Like, I love listening to him. He's very honest. He kind of gives you a lot more insight and detail, I think, than a lot of people do. And, he was talking about Cole Bishop today, and you're talking about the new parts there. That's one of them, right? And he said, look, like, he missed training camp last year. Those were very valuable reps. And the biggest difference from year one to year two, said Cole is just so much more. It said comfortability. That was the word he used, comfortability with Cole Bishop. And he talked about Taylor Rapp. It's so funny. We had all this talk about, are the Bills going to draft a safety? Remember the whole thing on draft day, Malachi Starks. And I remember coming on with you guys and Jeremy and Joe, like, I just don't see it. Like, they like their safeties. And a lot of Bills fans think they shouldn't like Taylor Rapp for whatever reason. There's been nothing indicating to me they ever don't like him. In fact, I think they really like him. And today that was reinforced. He said he thought Taylor Rapp had a really good year and said really, really tackled well. Like, that was a big part of having a really good year and what he did, and plus the 3 interceptions. So that's how they feel about the safety position. I did ask him about Jordan Hancock, which is interesting. I said, how do you balance? This guy has safety, nickel. What do? You have how do you get him to one spot? Because to train him at both. And his response was interesting. He said, I want to try to get this right. I quoted it exactly, I think. He said, we have a very well thought out, articulate, time-sensitive plan for him. How about that? So whatever that means for Jordan Hancock going forward, no doubt. And then you have the other things you talk about, which is the other guys getting, part of Ogunjobi and Michael Hoyt. But, Joey Bosa's hurt. And he said the big thing about that, we won't flinch. When Joey's ready to play, he's ready to play, right? But otherwise, said, that's my job. We have to adjust. You have to adjust all through the year, and that's part of the part of what we have to do right now with these guys.
When Joey's ready to play in late September, early October, he's ready to play, and it's my job to tell him he's not going to play for 2 more months after that. That's my that's my job to lay that out. All right, very good. Sal, thanks for your time.
You got it, guys. Thanks.
That's our Sal Capaccio on the West Her Hotline. His appearances are always brought to you by New York's only outlet liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet?
If I knew this Bobby Babich, you know what I want to ask him? Like, privately? And I want to ask, like, McDermott this, too. What would you do with Travis Hunter? What would the plan be? Wouldn't this question be a question maybe every team has asked of each other internally? Like, what do you think? What would we do?
What would we do with that?
If we had a great corner and a great receiver in one player, I bet it would, of course it would vary, but I wonder if, like, sort of the nature, so to speak, of the head coach, which side of the ball, he's sort of keen on, would dictate that. Like, Jacksonville has hired an offense. They always seem to hire an offensive coach. Well, that's not true, but they just did. Liam Cohen. And he's talking about Hunter at receiver. And I kind of, believe him. And part of that, they traded up for him, second overall. Mm-hmm. You're not going to limit him to any extent. I'd like to know sort of how the Bills would have handled Travis Hunter.
Interesting. There's a highlight making the rounds today that I can't imagine you haven't seen of Hunter making an interception. He was playing. How did you? I saw it.
I was mowing
78 times when I got here today.
Oh, wow.
Everyone retweeted it, like, all at once. He was covering someone and made I think the ball hit the ground, but
I was reading about
great diving,
politics.
One-handed. Wow, that must have been informative.
I was too immersed in politics snooze.
Anyway, but he at least a rep as a DB today that I saw a highlight of. So they are using.
I don't know what I was
assume both sides
doing.
Of the ball.
I had the podcast this morning, ADP chasing. Then I cut the grass. Went to lunch with my son in between.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Yeah.
How's that rider working out? Is that working out all right?
Love it
so far.
Love it. Yeah.
Are you starting to feel the zen of being on the mower and sort of surveying your kingdom?
No.
Okay.
But I'm enjoying. I think of myself as a Zamboni driver.
All right, that works.
trying to figure out the best, the most optimal route.
Right.
I'm enjoying that. Just sort of spending my thoughts on that. Not getting pen and paper out.
Right.
But just like I attack it. If I go around here, maybe I can come up here and sort of attack my lawn like I'm driving a Zamboni, which I kind of am.
Pretty much.
That's what I'm doing. And missing out on Travis Hunter clips. 803-0550, Travis Hunter. Sean McDermott, we've talked about with this Knicks news, making the decision on McDermott, how and when, if ever. And I don't mean that, pejoratively, because obviously he's won a lot and you know the whole thing. So we've got those topics and more. We'll continue after the update. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, WGR.
Today was media day for Bills OTAs. No Josh Allen, James Cook, Cam Lewis, or Joey Bosa. For more on practice today, Sal Capaccio has a piece up at our website, WGR550.com. We also had coordinators speaking today before practice. That includes defensive coordinator Bobby Babich and offensive coordinator Joe Brady. And then following practice, special teams coordinator Chris Tabor also spoke with the media. OTAs are going to wrap up this week with mandatory minicamp being next week, running Tuesday through Thursday. The Knicks have relieved head coach Tom Thibodeau of his duties. Thibodeau was the Knicks head coach for the past 5 seasons, making the playoffs in 4 of those seasons, and this year led the team to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years. The Bisons are in Syracuse versus the Mets. First pitch at 6:35. You can listen on our sister station, the Bet 1520. And under 100 WGR VIP golf cards remain. 8 amazing golf experiences for the low price of $129. For all the details and to purchase, go to getmyperks.com. And your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
A problem that every coach faces every year is if you think you can just pick up where you left off, you lose sight of the details, you lose sight of the how, you lose sight of like what got you to that point. And so there's elements of what we did last year that we obviously need to continue to sustain, but there's so many elements we got to get better at. I think when you just focus sometimes on the good or we got a lot of guys back, you can get comfortable. And we got to get better on offense, right? We got to find ways to improve. As long as we embody that and have that mindset, regardless if we had 11 new starters or all 11 back, we got to have that same approach.
Joe Brady, got to get better. Sure.
That's how I feel.
Franchise record in points.
I'm always striving.
You can't get complacent.
Just trying to improve every day. Even a minuscule percentage. Just keep getting better.
I think the only way the Bills can get better on offense is the one thing we obsess about. I don't know what else it would be. It would not be up front. It would not be Josh Allen related, mostly, right? Hitting that downfield pass is his job, but wouldn't be like, oh, we got to get him different in this way. Wouldn't be the running game. What could it be? It would be
explosive plays in the passing game.
That's it.
Right.
That's it. Where they wouldn't need to be so efficient as often on offense because they're playing a more conservative brand. I don't know what else I could even think of that would be like improving their offense.
Yeah.
But I do think that's big, and it really is at the root of all these conversations we have about their players.
Yeah. And I know I've not heard the point made, I don't think, this offseason, or maybe it's possible McDermott and or Bean. I remember McDermott making the point one of these off seasons, I feel like it was last year, about drives that have an explosive play, 20 yards or more, the percentage of those that end in points or touchdowns is, like he definitely recognizes the value of having that in your bag, like having that club to be able to hit the big play, whether it's a touchdown or not, but just, get, the odd 25 or 30 yard pass play, like I'm scoring. That's how those plays often feel. I mean, emotionally they feel that way, but like the data tells you, the drives that contain that sort of play end in points more often than those that don't. And it stands to reason. You don't have to do as many things right as many times if you are getting a chunky yards on one play, whether it's, handing the ball off and a guy running 30 yards through a seam like James Cook did many times last year, or it's hitting a pass down the field. All that requires is a guy getting open and your quarterback having enough time to get him the ball. Everybody's got a job to do to make it happen. I'm not saying it's that easy, but it's just, if you've got that in your arsenal, it's a big advantage. So I wonder if they will try to work on that. Or, again, we're hearing words here from Joe Brady about evolving and getting better and not taking anything for granted, and I appreciate that. That is the one thing that they really didn't do much of very well last year. It was be explosive.
How is it that on 2 ProFootballReference.com pages, the basic one and then the advanced one, the game logs, I can't get James Cook's long run per game. That's not on there? I mean, the advanced one gives me a lot. Yards after breaking tackles. I just don't see, like, long. That's what I want. What is, Cook is, we're at a point with Cook, and I'm, maybe this isn't fair for me to say because I didn't, I'm one who didn't bring it up to Sal. Go ahead.
I've got last year open here with game-by-game long runs if you have a direct question or do you want...
Would that be ESPN.com?
Yes, it would.
How do you like that? How many games was his long run more than, 10 yards or more? Most?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, most. Yes.
Most games he had at least one 10-yard run?
Yeah.
How about 15?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7 times he had?
7 times.
What are the highest
15
numbers?
or more.
What are his biggest runs? Miami?
New England. What week is this? Anyway, I don't know what order I'm going in here because the games don't look like they're adding up in the right order to me. Oh, it's going backwards from the open.
Now we're at ESPN.com.
The top of the page is the last game of the season instead of the other way around. So anyway.
That's an outrage. That is a heinous act.
I've never noticed this about the player stats because nothing else seems to be like this.
That is a disgusting act.
Hit a 15-yard run against the Cardinals, a 49-yarder against the Dolphins. And these are the 15-yard only above. 18-yarder against Seattle, a 20-yarder against Indianapolis, a 65-yarder against the Niners, a 41-yarder against the Lions, a 46-yarder against New England the following week. Those are the long runs per game. I left out any that were below 15. There's a couple of 13s, a 12, an 11, and then an 8 or a 6.
It's a big part of his year. It's always the touchdowns, but because really a lot of those games are not. I mean, he went for 107 against San Francisco. He had a 65-yarder. He went for 100 exactly in the first New England game. He had a
46-yarder in that one, right?
That's half his game.
105 against Detroit, 41-yarder in that game. Yeah, and that was, to my eyes, new. Him running away from people last year was. I did not see that his first 2 years here. Much. And I don't know, that could have just been better line play. You caught the defense in the right thing or whatever. And so, but I feel like there were times last year where he did accelerate away from people, and I never thought he had that gear. But last year, he seemed to have that gear. So I don't know if there was work done in the offseason that led to that, but I just saw a more explosive player last year. You want me to get the season before that out and see the long runs?
No, I don't know.
I don't need to do that.
I don't know that. I'm not going to say that you're wrong about that. I would, in a vacuum, tend to say, well, that's probably mostly not possible. But okay, I mean, maybe his weight or something about. This is not breaking news. Your running back is as good as your line and your offense. And last year, if not also the year before, Rich Rebar told us this. We knew it about the Bills' offensive line. However great they might be, what they've been that's so key and important, if that's the same thing, to their success is the 5 guys have been on the field constantly. And they did well enough, plus Alec Anderson, to open up things for Cook. And when you have Allen, too, it's going to be hard to stop if that's what you want to do. So, not to belabor a point about him, I just don't really care if it's James Cook or someone else, because if I'm in those same circumstances, my other guy is going to do fine, maybe sometimes even better, depending on how explosive he is or just what kind of runner he is. That's why part of it is just from from the standpoint of this job, it would have been fun, I think, to see them draft somebody in like the 5th round. It would have been somebody that, if you will, the Chris Trapassos of the world maybe would have really liked. And then we're in here at the OTAs, and I'm annoying Sal with, how does Jarquez Hunter look? But he's on the Rams, so we don't have that. We don't have anybody new.
Right.
And, I'm not sad about that, but I think I would have enjoyed the other scenario. I don't know. What's the best case scenario with Cook? I don't think it's for you that the Bills give him a 3-year contract.
No, I think my ideal – this has not changed since day one. Like the day he tweeted the eyeball emojis or whatever it was that started the $15 million a year contract train for him, My ideal scenario is he comes in and gives you some semblance of last year, like to the best of his ability. He gives you last year again. I'm not going to count on 16 touchdowns. I'd sign right now for 10. But he just gives me the year and rides off into the sunset. If somebody wants to give him that big money in free agency, then go ahead, and then I'll have Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, and then I'll be in the business of drafting someone. I imagine, because that model, I like that model. I mean, this is what now Cook has turned out to be a better player, a more valuable player than Devin Singletary, but third-round draft pick, they let him run it, and they let him go, and, he's gone on his way and fine. He's been on 2 teams in 2 years since he left here. I'm not sure where he ended up now.
Giants.
Is he still on the Giants? Okay.
I think so.
He went to Houston first and then to the Giants, I think, right? Okay.
The Giants have 2 other guys. Nobody's drafting Singletary. I think he's still there.
But anyway, the point is they used him up to an extent. I mean, I know he's still playing, but they got what they wanted out of him and let him go on his way. And I think Cook, I don't see a reason not to do the same thing with James Cook. Like, my ideal scenario is get a 4th good year out of him and replace him with someone young and cheap.
Cruel.
That's what I think you should do at running back.
Did you know that Cook, I think I used to know this and had forgotten, Cook is 6 weeks older than Davis?
Oh, I did not know that.
Like, Davis was old coming into the league for a prospect, and I think maybe that held him back a little bit, but because, it's kind of a strike against, I think, with running backs or receivers too. Maybe not quarterbacks anymore. Tyler Shugg is 38. The Saints drafted him in the 2nd round, and he's the first player ever to be drafted at the same number as his age. Pick 42. No. Davis is November of 99, and Cook is late September of 99. They're both younger than your marriage.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Sorry, it took me a second.
I don't know why. I didn't mean that as a shot.
I just had to. I did
99.
Like, that's right. And
June of 99.
Right. That's right. So I got married before they were born. Right?
You were married before.
Right.
Maybe all of the Bills running backs were born. How does Johnson compare? Is Johnson going to be older than both guys?
Yes. I'm going to say he's born before I got married.
That's correct. He is 27. The other guys are 25, so well done. Time out here. Lines are open for you, 803-0550. Cook or any of the other topics we've been hitting lately. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR. Welcome back. We'll look for your calls again after the next update, just in about 10 minutes. Jim Marshall, dead at the age of 87, long held the NFL record for consecutive games played, and he wasn't a kicker. He was a real football player.
Oh, fearsome force. No, the Purple People Eaters. Oh, my gosh.
Purple People Eaters.
That was a really bad gaffe.
You didn't take your hand off the piece. You got away with it.
Right.
282 games, maybe. This, I think, I've been thinking about this, is one of the first football players I ever knew of because of the play that he ran backwards.
Right.
Not ran backwards.
Ran the wrong way.
Ran the wrong way.
He's going the wrong way.
He's going the wrong way. And it's always been, when I think of that, I think of like, is that something that really should be possible? That you could just not know which way you should be running?
It seems like a pretty entry-level thing to have down.
Maybe it was tougher in the old days because there weren't logos all over the field, or maybe there was something about...
Everything was muddy. And
everything was muddy.
And it was black and white.
Yeah. Although that play is available in color. Bill Kilmer is the player who fumbles. It's a pass play, isn't it? And I think Bill Kilmer, who was a quarterback...
Yeah.
I want to say he's on the 49ers on this play.
Okay. I only remember him on Washington. But
As a quarterback. Who started a Super Bowl.
Right.
But I believe he is the fumbler on this play, and Jim Marshall, who's playing defensive end, picks up the ball and runs the wrong way, all the way for what he thinks is a touchdown, but is actually a safety. He throws the ball in celebration, like
it's sort of
into the crowd almost.
Like the way officials throw the ball to one another. It's sort of underhanded thing. Like he just across his body, underhanded, like whoop, just throws it like off the field, it looks like.
Yeah. Where you wonder maybe, like, if that had happened now, we would be reviewing it for years to see if the ball crossed the plane the other way. What's a forward pass at that point? Is that what that is?
I don't know.
It's a forward pass? Because he's run like 70 yards the wrong way.
He throws it in such a way that it's possible. I don't know. This is I would guess he was asked about this before he passed away today. At some point in his life, it's a very famous play, right? Sort of swallows up his career, but he had an incredible career. The way he throws that ball almost looks like he realizes as soon as he gets into the end zone, like. I did the wrong thing. Like he looks like he's mad the way he throws that ball.
But he doesn't know yet.
No, I'm assuming he doesn't know. But like I think you could like, did he realize it the way he threw that ball? He threw the ball like, who gives a crap? Is the way he throws that ball.
How does it get scored? It's a safety, but I'm looking at his stats, and it's a safety for the other team.
Right.
So he doesn't get, like, there's no column for negative safety.
Right. There's not like, own safety or own. Yeah, right. You don't get dinged for that.
I also remember, so, like, he's this famous player, the Vikings, it's before my time, barely, but, like, the 70s Vikings are in the Super Bowl 3-4 times, and he's, like, he always had a football card, Jim Marshall. Mm-hmm. Like, you'd think of him as being the best, almost. But he's not in the Hall of Fame. He played for 20 years. On that team, almost all of it for Minnesota. His first year was with Cleveland. And was that famous, but is not in the Hall of Fame. That seems like that would be hard to do. To have the record for most consecutive games played, and he started every game from 1961 until the end of the 1979 season for Minnesota, which was always good.
Yeah, it's a big,
for most of that.
A famous team that they were like the Bills of the 70s. The Bills of the 90s is what I mean. Like they were that good. They got to the Super Bowl, never won it, and they didn't go 4 times in a row. But still, there's 4 in pretty short order there. I think in that decade that they get and can't win one.
What did he not do right?
I don't know,
or well enough. Sacks?
I don't know.
They didn't keep sacks until
did that
the
play?
80s.
Did that play like overshadow his career so much so that like we can't put that guy in the Hall of Fame? That would be absurd.
I can't imagine that.
Alan Page is in the Hall of Fame.
He is.
Carl Eller is in the Hall of Fame. I'm not sure about. I'm trying to. I don't know. I'm not sure if I can name the fourth guy.
Doug Sutherland.
Okay,
that sound right?
I had a name like that in my head, like Saperston or something. I had him.
Eller is in the Hall of Fame.
Okay,
so he's a one-timer. He's been on our show one time.
Right, at a Super Bowl.
Still going. Carl Eller.
So Eller, Page, the other guy,
Doug Sutherland.
Okay,
I believe.
I don't believe he's in the Hall of Fame.
Definitely not.
Gary Nelson is the fourth player.
Gary Nelson. I think
not for all of it.
Right, the fourth guy. I think the three were staples, and maybe the fourth guy changed out a time or two. Because I don't remember this Nelson. Sutherland sounds very familiar to me.
Yes.
But Marshall was. I mean, it was a nicknamed defensive line, which was, there's a reason why I mixed up Fearsome Foursome. It was not uncommon to give nicknames to, position groups in that era. But still, for him to have been a part of such a successful team and a unit on a successful team that's famous enough to have a nickname that most football fans know.
I'm saying.
That kind of blows my mind. I did not realize he was in the Hall of Fame until today.
Really?
Yeah, I did not realize. I don't remember it being a cause, like, get him in, that kind of thing or anything. I just assumed that those three guys were all in.
Nope. Gary Larson on the kind of the front half of the Vikings run, late 60s to late 70s, and Sutherland on the back half.
Okay.
At defensive tackle. All right, Jim Marshall. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog at 803-0550. This is WGR.
No Josh Allen, James Cook, Cam Lewis, or Joey Bosa. For more on today, Sal Capaccio has a piece up at our website, WGR550.com. Before practice, though, the coordinator spoke with the media, defensive coordinator Bobby Babich, and offensive coordinator Joe Brady. And Brady had this to say on Cook's absence.
I obviously love Jimbo, but it's just like whenever someone's not here, it's a great opportunity for the guys that are. And seeing Ray and Ty and Diev and Frank just get those opportunities, like everybody kind of benefits from that. But I am excited whenever Jimbo is back with us.
OTAs are going to wrap up this week, and mandatory minicamp will be next week, running Tuesday through Thursday. Patriots linebacker Jelani Tavi suffered a calf injury today. He's expected to be held out until training camp, while Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud, he's continuing to not throw at OTAs as he deals with shoulder soreness. Head coach D'Amico Ryans says there is no concern on his end. The New York Knicks have relieved head coach Tom Thibodeau of his duties. Thibodeau was New York's head coach for the past 5 seasons, making the playoffs in 4 of those, and this year led the team to the Eastern Conference Finals, the first time for the Knicks in 25 years. Bisons are in Syracuse versus the Mets. First pitch at 6:35. You can listen to that on our sister station, The Bet 1520. And just under 100 WGR VIP golf cards remain. 8 amazing golf experiences for the low price of $129. For all the details and to purchase, go to getmyperks.com. It's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
They have this Panther sound effect that is just the cheesiest, stupidest sounding thing. Big voice guy going, Panther goal scored by Sam Reinhart.
Where'd you get that thing? I trapped it. Been keeping it in my bathroom at the motel, feeding it old pizza.
It's Mike Schopp.
If you're calm, that wondrous big cat will be calm too. But if you're scared, that beautiful death machine will do what God made it to do. Namely, eat you with a smile on its face.
And the Bulldog. On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Bisons, Syracuse. Is that a rivalry? Bisons, Mets. This is today, in about less than half an hour, is their 7th meeting of the season, and they will meet 24 times, which I think is par for the course, the Bisons and the Syracuse Mets. 24 times a year. Could you play baseball 24 times against a team and just not, like, sort of have
animosity?
Something?
Yeah. Yeah, I think by, like, game 9 of that, I'd be like, the way this guy wears his hat.
Sick of this guy.
I mean, it's bad enough he's got that face, but look at the way he's wearing the hat. For sure. That would not take more than that for me.
There would be minor league rivalries. Like, they would have that in hockey.
Sure.
You play Rochester and Syracuse play each other all the time, and there's been playoff history, including this year. There would be something, right? I mean, players are changing all the time, but
yeah, I think minor league baseball should have that. I think does have that. I just don't know who they are.
Do the benches clear? The dugouts, I should say. The bullpens empty. That's it. Do the dugouts empty, or do the benches? How would you put that? Do the dugouts empty?
I think bench clearing.
It's still benches.
Still bench clearing. I think.
Okay.
I mean, that works anyway. I feel like that's all encompassing. That includes the bullpens. Like, if you say, like, the bench clearing brawl, I feel like everyone, the guys from the bullpen are sprinting towards the brawl so they can stand there and do nothing with everyone else who's standing there and doing nothing.
Did you see the recent one involving the Orioles?
I did not.
It was, maybe they were playing the White Sox. It was so funny. This happened, I guess, maybe last week. Kobe Mayo was the base runner. Big prospect for Baltimore. He hasn't hit yet, so I don't know if it's still up there or what. But that's the player. Kobe Mayo is in a rundown between first and second. And you got to see it. It's so good. He's running back to first, trying to survive this rundown. Whoever it is, the second baseman, throws the ball to the first baseman. All right, so let's say it's the second baseman. It probably is. The second base, he's closer to first than he is to second. He's running toward first, the runner. The second baseman throws the ball to the first baseman. The runner, of course, stops and goes back the other way. The second baseman, after throwing the ball, has, as you would want him to do, drifted over into the grass to get out of the way.
Right.
Mayo, the runner, runs into him. He runs over into the grass and flops. He hits him and flops. And the White Sox get up and maybe they're talking to him, and they have their arms out. What was that?
Right.
He's trying to draw a interference call against the second baseman, but he literally runs at him into the grass and falls down. And so
that doesn't seem like a very effective tactic.
This would be a good one for if you're writing a book on these quote brawls. There was no fighting.
Right.
The Orioles are probably I guess we got to go out there. Did you see that? Are we really going to go out there and I guess we have to.
Right.
So they just sort of trot out, and the White Sox, the White Sox are annoyed with the guy because what kind of that's like an A-Rod sort of move.
What kind of play is that?
A-Rod maybe would have done that.
Right.
We're just ah! And he goes down. The White Sox come out, and it's 20 minutes later, here come the bullpens. Oh. I'm reading a book out here. I've got the sunflower seeds. Right. I'm just watching a different game on my app. Now I got to go do this. This is embarrassing. So they all get out there, and it all just goes away. Because I think they were all unified at being annoyed with the one player.
Right, even the Orioles guys.
The Orioles.
What the hell? What were you doing?
What kind of move is that?
What was that?
Can you imagine doing that? If your kid did that, just trying to draw?
Oh, my gosh, no. I mean, boy, you mentioned A-Rod. I hope everybody's mind went to it, if they haven't forgotten about it. I guess you could forget about it. It's a long time ago now. But the 04 ALCS against the Red Sox, where he chops the play running to first. He chops Bronson Arroyo's arms as he's running by. Arroyo's got the ball. He's going to tag him, and he just karate chops Arroyo's
That's a lacrosse move.
So he drops the ball. They call A-Rod out. And what made you think that was going to fly? What in the world what are you doing? It's the ALCS, dude.
What was the one with him where he ran across the pitcher's mound? Rodriguez. There was another one against Oakland where
I remember something else with him that I'm not sure about the pitcher's mound, but
is it a pop-up?
A pop-up, and he yelled at the fielder.
Who would do that?
That was it was infield fly ball, and he's running between I think second and third, and goes at the guy trying to catch the ball.
All right.
Which I remember defending.
Do you?
Yeah, just because I hated him, but we were just,
what's wrong with that?
It was just some Friday in the summer, and we were arguing about it, whatever. It was it was
a day not too different from today.
A ridiculous thing to do. And I was over here wow, he's just trying to get an edge. I don't mind.
Did he maybe
bozo?
Did he maybe one time when he was out at third or something, run back to the first base dugout across the pitcher's mound?
And there's you said the A's, and I don't know, in my head I thought maybe this pop-up play was against the A's, but no, it was in Toronto.
Okay.
It was I'm almost sure.
Maybe he did it all the time.
But, yeah, Dallas Braden.
Yep, I think that's right.
Yeah, that's the guy.
He threw a perfect game.
He got mad at A-Rod because A-Rod crossed over the mound on his way across for some reason.
That's something you shouldn't do.
Might have been a play. It might have even been on the way to the dugout. Might have been a play where he ran and he had to go back to first. And he had gotten all the way to third, and going back to first, he just walked across the mound.
Like a foul ball down the line or something?
Trotted across the mound, and I think it could have been the end of an inning too, but I think it was in the middle of an inning when
because the pitcher is standing there.
Right. Yeah, if the inning was over, the pitcher's already walking off. I don't know that he cares.
Baseball has a lot of these, but you would think one person who would know of these, it would be a baseball player.
Sure.
Somebody who's actually involved in the sport would know what not to do like that.
Right. Chop at the guy's arms while he's going to tag you. He's got the ball in his glove. You're just, bam! Nobody's going to see that.
What do you mean?
What are you doing? Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard any other stories about a guy yelling, "Ha!" at a guy trying to field a pop-up, so maybe that's pretty unprecedented
No,
as
kids.
well.
That's what kids do.
Kids do that, right. But,
Kids yell from the dugout to try to distract the person catching the pop-up.
Right, but not...
Kids might run across the mound. Kids might karate chop the pitcher.
Right.
Kids would do these things.
People who don't know the rules of the sport.
People who've never seen baseball would maybe do these things. I want you to drop it, right? Why can't I participate in that? To that end. I'm starting to see diving in my kids' sports.
Oh, yeah?
I see it in this lacrosse, in box lacrosse. I mean, I've been watching so many of these games. Practice at 9 tonight. International. In another country. You find me there tonight. There were a few plays over the weekend. It's such a brutal game. It is so rough. Like, slashing as hard as you can picture it is legal.
Yeah.
Just,
that is
one
still
hand.
the biggest adjustment I have to make when I watch the Bandits win the championship, or just I watch the college championship on Memorial Day. The hacking that's allowed, it takes a lot for me to get used to as a lifetime hockey watcher. It's just like, I don't think you can do. I guess you can do that. Okay, all right, sure, all right, I'm all right over here.
Some amount of interference is allowed. Like, you're setting up your offense. Picture, like, if you can't picture the Bandits or something, picture basketball. And the point guard is coming up the middle of the court, passes the ball to the left, and just plows into the center. Runs right up the middle toward the goal, and just bam! And that's allowed. You can do that. And then you see, like, these giant collisions happening, the ball's being passed around, and there's all this scrum in the middle of it. So you see the hacking all the time, and, it's part of the game. I mean, the kids must just get banged up from this. There's only so much padding. They're out there in shorts. It's mostly okay. And once in a while, you will see, like, because you'll have these sort of one-on-one confrontations that will bloom from this naturally, right? You're sick of, you're hacking them back, and nobody has the ball, but it's just two guys whacking each other, and then there'll be one more, and even kids, like, the other kid will go down, or like a head hit is a penalty. And I saw a kid the other day sort of duck into the slash and draw the penalty, right? So,
wow.
That's on this level, the teenage level, there's a lot of gamesmanship.
That's a craft. There it is. You know how to draw.
Yeah.
Draw a hit to the head without hurting your head. I would think takes some doing.
I feel like that's maybe secondary to the penalty, getting the call. So, tough game to officiate, I got to imagine. There's so much slashing, so much whacking.
Yeah.
Slashing and whacking and diving and hitting.
The ball is so little, too. It's a little ball.
The bouncy little ball. Very bouncy on these boxes.
Yeah.
Lots going. The glass, big hits into the boards. That's another one.
Is this the first time your son has been playing indoor, or has he been doing a little bit of that all along?
No, not all along either. But when he started, he was playing in a box league. But not all the facilities had a roof.
Okay.
So a couple of those, like his home team, played outdoors, and at least one other. There are some beautiful arenas, though, that you run into in this sport. And Canada, my wife and I talk about this, and you've lived it. It just seems like every one of these towns has this amazing rec center. And, like, I was in Guelph, which is big enough, I guess. I don't know how big. Is big enough for at least two of them, because we had games at two different rec centers, both with Olympic pools. And, I mean, the one in Brantford has water polo going on.
Yeah.
And basketball courts and volleyball courts. And it's just really good.
I could not really I'm sure you could Google and find out, when that building boom happened, but I've mentioned it to you before. 3 or 4 towns. Milton, Ontario is one that comes to mind. But there were again 3 or 4 others that were exactly like 2 or 3 rinks, a pool, a gym for basketball, like just community centers that was just an initiative by the government or whatever it was. Like just all these towns got these. They're like cookie cutters, but they're very similar structures.
They're massively big,
huge,
and
like
super nice.
You go in, you pull in, and it's like, where do I want to park if I'm going for the hockey?
Right, 6 different entrances.
Right, because I'm I don't really need to go in by the pool. My kid's carrying goalie gear. Where's the rink entrance? Like
right.
I'm going to I'd end up just dropping him at the door and just parking wherever. But it was like an airport.
The Gretzky one in
it's just so big.
Brantford has that, where I parked by the pool by mistake. I thought this was the way in, and it's like way far down there for lacrosse. So yeah, really just very, very envious of this about Canada, that there are so many of these beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I haven't visited hardly any of them, Southern Ontario. I'm not even talking Toronto. Hamilton for sure, Guelph, Brantford, St. Catharines. Like, just there's so many. And, man, I would love one of those where I live. But probably not free.
The impression I have is that, again, that was like government built those. Those are like town facilities, right?
Yes.
County, whatever, right? What you see in the States, if this lacrosse path takes you, into the Midwest, what I noticed in the Midwest is that those sorts of facilities, but it's all private. So like indoor, outdoor for baseball and football, and like here's the ice rink, and like it's not town stuff. It's like high end AAA sports, pay your fees, and like I don't want to say every town, but the Midwest, frequently from the highway, you could just see these compounds and be like, what in the world is happening to youth sports? Like, it's incredible.
Absolutely true. Like, in the Canadian sense, the Guelph example, there's a pool. People are coming and going that are just probably residents that are checking in. They've got a card. There's also a library in the facility. Right. The town library is at the rec center. So very much for public use. Rich Rebar, our guest from Sharp Football earlier, talking about Dalton Kincaid and more. That's coming up. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.